Not the end of the world.
We've never had this issue.
That did it. Just turn on the light switch. Come on. You're the superintendent. You didn't know that?
Kind of my level of pay scale there.
Kind of like, is it plugged in first?
All right. If everyone would join us in the Pledge of Allegiance, we'll begin the meeting. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening. Welcome to the last Board of Education meeting of the school year. So tonight, we are pleased to recognize numerous outstanding students and schools, 8 students with a perfect score in the ACT, and some state sports champions from North, Central, South, and West high schools. So first, please welcome Dr. Kevin Beckner, Assistant Superintendent of Teaching, Learning, and Accountability, and he'll get things kicked off.
Well, good evening, and good evening to all our scholars who are here tonight. We have 8 different students to recognize tonight for scoring a perfect 36, the highest possible score on the ACT college admissions exam. They took the ACT in April. The ACT consists of tests in English, mathematics, reading, and science, each scored on a scale from 1 to 36. A student's composite score is the average of all 4 test scores. Nationally, while the number of actual students earning the top score varies from year to year, on average it's fewer than 1% of students who take the ACT who earn the top score. In the U.S. high school graduating class of 2023, only about 2,500 students out of 1.3 million who took the ACT earned a composite score of 36. As mentioned before, we have 8 students to recognize this evening. Students, if you are in attendance and hear your name, please come forward and be recognized by the board. We have 3 students tonight from Central High. Jamul Lee, if you're here, please come forward. Congratulations. Grace Lee. Zayden Reza. From North High, we have 2 siblings who are not present tonight, but we want to recognize them as well. That's Eric Lipsis and Sam Lipsis. From South High, Jaden Kian Ko. From West High, Will Gonsier. And finally, also from West High, Gavin Hughes. Congratulations to all our students earning a perfect ACT.
Next, please welcome Corey Johnson, our Activities and Athletics Director, to introduce Parkway's state sports champions.
Good evening. And on behalf of the board, Dr. Marty, thank you all for this opportunity to recognize our state champions from this winter and this past spring. We will be recognizing state champions from North Girls Track, Central Girls Track, South Girls Track, West Girls Swimming, and also South Girls Swimming. So our ladies actually stole the show this spring and this summer. They did outstanding, so we'll recognize them. Our state champions from South could not be present this evening. And coached by Coach Blakely Mathis for our state champion from South High in girls swimming, Elena Henich. She's a senior. She was a Class 2 state 100-meter breaststroke and 100 intermediate individual medley champion. Elena will be going to the University of Kansas to swim, and she also has a 4.0 GPA. Also from South, coached by Bob Klebold, is Josie Portell. Josie is a junior. Josie is the state champion in the 100-meter para, 200-meter para, and 400-meter para. And now Josie is actually the back-to-back champion in both of these events, as she won the state meet in these three events last year. And Josie has a 4.16 GPA. Our state champions from North High girls track. So if head coach Jason Crawford could come up, and our sophomore state champion, Uyoyo Umani, is the Misha Class 4 state triple jump champion. Her winning jump was 38 feet, 3 1/4 inch. And what's impressive about this is her jump is almost 1.5 feet further than the closest competitor. And again, she is a sophomore and she won the state championship. And what's most impressive about Uyoyo is she sports a 4.53 GPA. And lastly, from West, girls swim. Our last state champion, who's coached by Colleen Sumner, Nora Rukowski. She's a senior. Nora won the Class 1 100-yard butterfly, beating the entire field by over a full second and a half. Nora will be attending Swarthmore College in Pennsylvania in the fall to swim, and she's actually leaving swim practice to try to make it here. So she's actually going to try to make an appearance tonight. But she did have swim training and was trying her best to, oh, you did make it. There you go. See how fast Nora is. And not to leave one of Nora's most impressive feats out also is Nora has a 4.6 GPA. So again, an amazing student, an amazing athlete. Last, from Central High girls track, coached by Coach Ryan Banta, is Sky Lee. She's a senior. Sky Lee is the Misha Class 4 state sprint and hurdle champion in the 200, the 100-meter hurdles, and the 300-meter hurdles. In both the 100 and 300-meter hurdles, she has not only the school record, but the overall state record. At this past state meet, she scored 38 points, which was the highest point total scored at the meet. Her 100-meter and 300-meter hurdle times are not only tops in the state, but are actually ranked in the nation. She is gone now and can't be present this evening because she is attending a national invite meet only for professionals that will be attending the Olympic trials, and she will be attending the University of Florida in the fall for a track scholarship. In closing, I'd like to thank each of the coaches for their jobs that they did with the athletes this summer and this fall through the winter and spring. Their training is so valuable to the athletes' overall success and their mentorship and how they guide and lead our athletes. I want to thank each of our athletes for their leadership and their perseverance and everything that they did to be successful, have great seasons, and also continue the outstanding work in the classroom as shown by their GPAs. And then last but not least, to each of our parents, because our state champions could not have had the success that they had without the support of our parents at home. Thank you.
Thank you, Corey. And again, congratulations to all of our students who were recognized tonight. We're very proud of you and appreciate you in the classroom and outside of the classroom. At this time, we're going to take a brief recess and we'll resume the meeting shortly. So, oh, I see one that I need to go say hi to. Are we ready to resume? Next up on our agenda is additions, corrections, and/or modifications. Those include 7.01, addendum to agenda item 11.09, approval of personnel items. Next up is an opportunity for public comment. And so I will read our official beginning of that. It's during this time that we provide an opportunity at each meeting for citizen comments in an effort to maintain an open and respectful dialogue with our community. Public comment session is not the appropriate forum for addressing individually identifiable student and/or personnel matters. Therefore, due to privacy laws protecting students and employees, comments about these matters should not include personally identifiable information about particular students or employees. Members of the public, staff, and students are encouraged to utilize established policies and procedures for offering suggestions or addressing concerns and complaints prior to bringing the issue before the board. Please be mindful that the meetings of the board, including your statements at the podium, are broadcast and that you are responsible for any public comments you make. In lieu of a public statement, you may choose to submit your comments to the board in writing. Also, due to time constraints and the need to complete the primary responsibilities of our meeting agenda, we cannot respond during the meeting, so you will receive a response from us in writing. Also, due to time I just read that part. So we are also available to have an open and respectful dialogue outside of these meetings, and we can be reached by email or phone by the contact information on the Parkway website. I will call on speakers in order that you have signed up, and I will do my best to pronounce your name properly. Feel free to correct me if you like, and I will try and call 2 or 3 of you at a time so you have a little bit of heads up other than the very first person. So also in fairness to the speakers and our time, and to move along as efficiently as possible, I'd ask you to withhold your applause until after all of the speakers have spoken. Tonight we have, I believe we have 23 who have signed up, so each of you will have about a minute and a half. So we will start off with Jaspal Singh, Maina, followed by Mayank Jain, followed by Margaret Donnelly. So Jaspal.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for giving the opportunity to speak. I'm bringing an important point about introduction of one of the world languages, Hindi, in Parkway school system, and what are the benefits the Parkway can have. So I'll read out the content I have prepared. So why Hindi should be taught in Missouri schools? Introduction of Hindi in Parkway schools, especially in St. Louis area, offers multitude of benefits that extend beyond simple language acquisition. The demographic landscape of St. Louis has seen a significant influx of Hindi speakers, and this has been growing over 30% in last decade. In St. Louis area, around 5% people, 5% community understands Hindi. The trend indicates that Hindi-speaking families underscores the importance of fostering inclusive education environment. Another point is cultural awareness and inclusivity. Teaching Hindi not only helps students communicate with a larger segment of the local community, but also promote cultural understanding. As students learn Hindi, they also gain insight into rich traditional history of South Asia and many countries which uses this language. Global competence and career opportunities. In today's globalized world, proficiency in multiple languages is a valuable asset. Hindi is the 4th most spoken language in the world. So with the time constraint, I would not be able to complete, but wanted to bring the point about Hindi. Thank you.
If anyone is unable to complete all of their thoughts, you're welcome to email them to us or have them printed. Yep. Next up is Mayank Jain. Perfect, thank you. We'll make sure everybody gets one.
Good evening, members of the Parkway School Board. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. As Jaspal already mentioned, I would like to highlight similar thing in proposing Hindi language in the Parkway School District. Hindi is the 4th most spoken language, as Jaspal just covered, and here in St. Louis, as well as around the world, there are about 192 universities, including top colleges, where Hindi language is taught. I am founder and director of the Hindi USA, a non-profit language school, which I had started about 6 years back. And I'm proud to say that the demand has grown from 22 to 200, almost 200 this year. It is the largest non-profit Hindi language school in entire Midwest among 9 states. So there's a lot of demand. That's the bottom line. And then we understand the challenge because there's no certified teacher who can teach Hindi language. We are struggling for the last 1 year to find out how even the certification works. We have reached out to Rockwood as well as Parkway superintendents. Pretty much, we are aware of the challenges. We are here to work with you all. The call to action is we would like to work with you, especially in terms of the MOCAP program, and see how we can help Parkway to fund as well as any help that we can offer. We have teachers. We would like to work with you to see how we can make it happen. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Margaret Donnelly. She'll be followed by Jody Liebman and then Laura Moll.
All right. Good evening, Dr. Marty, President Todd, and members of the board. My name is Margaret Donnelly, and I have served Parkway for 12 years as a program coordinator in early childhood. We have been working towards and advocating for a South Center for over 10 years. In 2013, an early childhood demographic study was completed, and a steering committee was formed to analyze the results. We discussed 2 facilities models, a multi-site model or a center-based approach. The consensus over a decade ago was that our early childhood students and their families would best be served by center-based programming because of the needs of our students, their families, and the uniqueness of our 6 early childhood programs. Unfortunately, other projects took precedence and early childhood was not included in the 2014 bond. Nonetheless, we in early childhood continued our steering committee work, and a second demographic study was completed in 2019, which included enrollment projections through 2030. This work showed the need to consolidate locations and expand programming in the South area. Early childhood was thrilled to finally be included in the 2020 bond that passed with overwhelming community support. We were very surprised to learn that some residents are opposed to this project and that it has been paused. Please understand that the needs of early childhood cannot be pushed back. Dr. Marty recently said, what makes Parkway special is that our community comes together to focus on our students. Please, let's remember to focus on our youngest learners. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Jody Liebman.
My name is Jody Liebman. I'm a lifelong resident of the Parkway School District. My husband, my children, and I all graduated from Parkway schools. I've had the privilege to work at the Early Childhood Center for 24 years. I have confidence in Parkway's decision-making. Regarding the South Early Childhood Center, I understand the board is considering putting this project on hold, and I do not understand what that would accomplish. Several years have already been spent researching the need and an appropriate location for the center. The current plan improves existing property already owned by the district. This plan creates a state-of-the-art center to serve the needs of children and families during the critical early years of development. There was no opposition to the center until the location was chosen. The concerns of those living near the proposed site have been researched, addressed, and resolved in the planning process. Those who oppose this plan are basically saying, not in my backyard. Let's not let a few people ruin this opportunity for the future students and families in Parkway. I'm asking the board to look at the facts, not the emotional reactions of a small group. Please move forward with this plan for the South Early Childhood Center. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Laura Moll.
Hi, I'm here to comment on the Early Childhood South Center. My family and I moved into the area specifically to access Parkway's excellent education. Up until this point, I have 2 young children that have been enrolled in a daycare outside of the district. They're 11 months and 3 years of age. Unfortunately, in the last year, their care has really deteriorated, and I've been looking into many daycares in the area, called 10 daycares, and all of them are waitlisted, or I was gonna have to pay up to $12,000 more per year to access services, and unfortunately, that's not something my family could afford. we got super lucky and that I was picked for the lottery. And as I'm going to be able to, my child will be able to attend Parkway in August, but I know that for hundreds of families, that's not the case. So I got super lucky, and this is my personal story, but unfortunately this is not uncommon. I've talked to many moms who are quitting their jobs because they can't find adequate daycare for their child, and also like, I know that there's not really, it's an anomaly for any of the teachers at daycares to have a degree in education, whereas at Parkway, this is a requirement. And the new Early Childhood South Center would not only provide access to quality, affordable education for hundreds of families, but will also revitalize the natural elements surrounding it, providing outdoor classrooms, an ADA naturescape playground, and a revitalized pond that the children at all 4 of the schools in the area will be able to utilize. As countless studies demonstrate, okay, thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Jennifer Cole. She'll be followed by Pat Teach and Sue Green.
Good evening. My name is Jennifer Cole, and I'm a proud Parkway parent in the south area of the district whose children began in Parkway Preschool. My son, Jackson, just graduated from Fern Ridge. I have also worked as a preschool teacher for the past 16 years in the early childhood program, and I'm proud to have my son attend Parkway schools and for me to work in Parkway. I have worked at both satellite sites and at the Early Childhood Center, and the difference is vast in the level of support a student receives when having occupational therapists, physical therapists, speech pathologists, behavior analysts, administration, counseling, and social workers working alongside one another to collaborate and provide wraparound support. We have students who are still potty training that don't even have the correct size toilets because our early childhood facilities were not designed for the preschool students. We got some hand-me-down afterthoughts. We are in an affluent district, yet have students with motor skills that don't have access to motor room or gym and are completely isolated from peers in other classroom types. The new center not only creates more opportunities for more students and families to receive early intervention and preschool, but it also allows for those services to be delivered in a high-quality environment designed for young children. I am shocked at how controversial this center has become. Just recently, my teacher colleague was at Target on Manchester, proudly wearing her Parkway Early Childhood shirt, and was berated and yelled at in front of her own children simply for working at the Parkway Early Childhood. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Pat Teach.
Hi, Dr. Marty, members of the Board of Education, and Ms. Stover and citizens. My name is Pat Tyke, and I'm Farmer Director of Early Childhood Education for 17 years. And I started the preschool program 30 years ago after studying the critical importance of early childhood intervention with the board and the superintendent. It was approved so that children would have access to quality experiences. We made 3 commitments at that time to the Board of Education and the community. The first was that all children would participate, especially children with special needs. Those promises we kept. All children with special needs, any child is welcome to participate in early childhood. The teachers, the second promise was that all the teachers would be degreed and certified in early childhood education or early childhood special education. And we also would continue to apply for grants, which we did from the state of Missouri, to continue to promote development of their professional development and growth, because early childhood integrates general ed and special ed so closely, like Jenny said. The third promise was that all district children and their families would have access to the early childhood programs. The South area has had a wait list since the beginning of Parkway Preschool 30 years ago. People stand outside in line, they wait for lottery drawings just to get into the preschool program. But all of the programs the children need access to. The time is long overdue for the South area to have an early childhood center. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Sue Green. She'll be followed by Kathy Zimmerman and Sarah Johnson.
Hello, my name is Sue Green, and I've been teaching at the Early Childhood Center for 20 years now, starting with the parent-child classes. And then for the past 10 years have been the Kids Morning Out teacher. Because I teach the 2- and 3-year-olds, I'm often the first teacher for our Parkway families. And I love helping to set the tone with our inclusive, welcoming, play-based learning environment for them. Quality early childhood programs create benefits for those students long after early childhood ends. They begin with the social skills, the language development, the early reading readiness that all happens in preschool and helps them throughout their years. Half of my students this year live south of Manchester Road. That area has a large concentration of young families in Parkway. Being able to reach more families with the new South Center is important for the future of Parkway. Having new construction that does address the size of our students, having access to all of the things that can help them with their self-help skills is important. Our programs give access to more special education services than daycares or private preschools can provide. We are currently turning families away due to lack of classroom space, and we might be missing those early opportunities to intervene for kids with special needs. Kids Morning Out registration needed to be changed to a lottery system because it fills up so quickly, and we don't have enough space for those kids who would like to start at the 2- and 3-year-old level. The full-day preschool rooms are always at capacity. Children who don't get into our program then have to find alternative programs.
Next up is Kathy Zimmerman.
Good evening. My name is Kathy Zimmerman. I have been a Parkway resident for 30 years. Back in the day, I was one of the parents standing in line for a preschool slot at 6 in the morning. I was lucky and got a slot for my child. Several years later, I was hired as a parent educator for the district and just completed my 20th year. When I began, my families were all in the south end of the district, went to Hannah Woods, Wren Hollow, Sorrento. While these days my families are at the north end at Craig, Bellerive, McKelvey, I have realized that all of the Parkway schools have congestion at the start and end of the school day. I build time into my schedule because I know I may get caught in traffic along Ross, Craig, Henry, Hannah. I mentioned I stood in line to try to get a district slot. Even back in the early 2000s, there were more families wanting slots than were available. Every year, I provide information about registering for preschool and hope for the best, knowing that out of the 5 to 8 families that apply, maybe one gets a slot. An extremely good year for me is when 3 families can attend our preschool. Everyone in early childhood, preschool teachers, parent educators, TAs, and specialists have known that we needed an additional site for over 10 years. We were thrilled when the bond issue passed and that dream became a reality. The goal of the new center is not to take away from others, but provide additional chances for families that want to participate in Parkway Preschool to have that option. This is especially vital as the number of children who need help continue to increase and other preschool and childcare sites cannot meet their needs. They have staff who care but cannot cope and are telling families that their child may no longer attend their site.
Thank you. Next up is Sarah Johnson. She'll be followed by Stephen Rutherford and Holly Drainer.
Good evening. My name is Sarah Johnson, and I'm an early childhood occupational therapist. For the last 13 years, I've had the privilege of serving Parkway early childhood community, primarily in the South Parkway region. My purpose today is just to draw attention to the inefficiencies in service provisions through Parkway early childhood due to several satellite sites across the South region. As a result of scattered classrooms throughout the South Parkway area, I often find myself traveling between multiple sites every day. This last year, I served children at 9 different locations. While myself and others in this situation do the best that we can with the resources that we have, it's hard not to notice the discrepancies between access to appropriate therapeutic supplies and environment, such as easily accessible preschool-sized restrooms, and indoor as well as outdoor motor, educational, and therapeutic space. Currently, children at most satellite sites do not have consistent access to indoor motor rooms and/or gym space. The planned South Early Childhood Facility would allow for exactly that, intentionally designed space with a lens for early childhood students in mind from the beginning. Along with facilitating natural collaboration amongst staff that are located together, allowing for access to appropriately sized and easily accessible restrooms, as well as shared indoor and outdoor recreation and therapeutic space. This much anticipated plan is exciting for those of us that serve the children in these classrooms because we see gaps in their access to shared therapeutic materials and staff collaboration out of, frankly, the environmental barrier of having classrooms separated throughout the South region. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Stephen Rutherford.
Good evening. My name is Stephen Rutherford. My wife and I have 26 kids who have attended Parkway schools. 4 of them were our natural children, and the rest were exchange students who joined our family through a nonprofit called Youth for Understanding. YFU students have attended St. Louis schools for more than 50 years. In the last decade, YFU awarded $423,000 in merit scholarships to St. Louis students to study abroad while in high school. Of that amount, $98,000 was awarded to Parkway students. Right now, Parkway South student Charlotte Bowers is finishing her year in Germany. Parkway Central student Sadie Cohen will spend next school year in Germany, and Parkway Central student Hannah Bolaños Roth will join a YFU family in Japan this summer. These 3 Parkway students all won fully funded merit scholarships from YFU in order to have these life-changing experiences. My family has volunteered hosting YFU students at Parkway for 20 years, and we have always been very grateful to Parkway for your continued support of host families like ours. Thank you.
Next up is Holly Drainer. She'll be followed by Gaetano Pino and Faye Pathetic.
Hi, my name is Holly Drainer, and I'm a member of the Parkway Southwest Middle community, as well as a parent educator for Parkway. 2 of my children have been through Southwest Middle, with my son having just graduated this spring. Neither of them recall the field being a first choice for where they had activities. My son, in fact, finished playing softball through an intramural activity just this spring, and they played on the blacktop in the parking lot in front of the school. The field would have been a logical place, but it wasn't where they chose to play. Most of the sports that they did, especially intramural, were played on the blacktop. They did, in fact, use the nature trails, but they weren't often cleared well, so they had it as a school activity to clear back the honeysuckle. They are looking forward to the idea of having that nature trail open, as my son is going to be at South High, and it's just within walking distance. As a parent educator, we talk to our families a lot about being outside as a way to reset behavior. There are a lot of social, emotional issues going on with children, especially after COVID. We ask for them to get outside, to play with water, to do lots of nature activities, and there just really isn't an area that has that kind of facility for our children that are with preschool age up to 5. Having a pond that they think they could go and fish at, having an ADA playground that's available for children who just can't go to a regular park. There are a lot of things that are going to be offered at this nature-based school and the playground that could benefit a lot of children.
Next up is Gaetano Pino.
Good evening, everybody, and thank you to the school board for letting me speak today. My name is Gaetano Pino. I'm an exchange student from Italy, and I just finished my year at Parkway Central. Today, I'm here to express my gratitude to some of the people that made my year possible. First of all, I want to thank Dr. McCarthy and the school board for every year accepting exchange students in our district. It's really amazing, and the experience that comes with it is wonderful. To all the teachers, thank you for supporting me and being understanding throughout this year. I will always be grateful for your guidance. Also, I want to thank the soccer program at Parkway Central for letting me play soccer here in the States. It was amazing, and the fields where I played were like the best ever. Thank you also to all the students and all the Parkway families for welcoming me. Before I came here, I didn't think that was gonna make such meaningful and close connections and friendships, but I did, and I will never forget any of them. This year was probably one of the best years of my life, and this experience gave me a lot. I will never forget anybody or anything that was part of this chapter of my life. A chapter that, unfortunately, is coming to a conclusion. Perfectly.
Thank you. Next up is Faye Fettick. She'll be followed by Melissa Copeland and Clayton Christensen.
Good evening. I'm Faye Fedek, a Parkway grad and parent of an incoming Southwest Middle student. At recent board meetings around the proposed location of the new ECC, it became clear that the intent was for our middle students to walk to the South High Fields for gym and after-school activities. This plan presents an important unanswered question. Did voters understand that the language used in bond issue promotion meant an existing field space was to be used? The term South Area was the exact phrase used in most bond issue materials. The exact language in the West News article was, a new facility proposed to be built near Southwest Middle would accommodate many of those families. Did voters, taxpayers, and families expect that middle school students' experience would be affected in this way? For background, all Parkway Middle Schools have at least one field and many have more. While several are adjacent to high school properties, none require students to navigate a significant distance or steep incline-decline to access a field for after-school activities. The impact of the ECC of this scope would render Southwest Middle School uniquely without a field. Once constructed, there is no opportunity to regain this space, so it becomes a permanent disadvantage for students attending this particular middle school. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Melissa Copeland.
Good evening. My name is Melissa Copeland. I want to start off letting you know there is a petition for relocating the ECC. As of right now, there are 665 signatures on the petition, and it is to relocate. Last month, I sent you all emails of 42 pictures attached to the email. They all have dates and times when they were taken. What a timeline of the use of the field between Wren Hollow and Southwest Middle. It's amazing, these iPhones, they do it all. So for the misinformation on no one using, it is obviously all wrong. It is not Southwest Middle, then it must be Wren Hollow using it to have 42 pictures of the use of the field. It is truly a shame that Southwest Middle is not allowed to use this field. Shame on everyone that's involved in this. Where has the last 30 years of the revenue gone from this field that's used after school? It should have been used for upgrades all these years on that field. You're putting a new tennis court at South Senior, but you can't patch a parking lot where only gym classes held outside for 700 children. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Clayton Christensen. He'll be followed by Eileen Dempscher and Christy Heffley.
Hi, my name is Clayton Christensen, and I will be attending Southwest Middle in August. When I heard that there was going to be a new ECC, I did not exactly approve, because my class uses that spot as a little playground. But then I heard that there was going to be a fishing pond, and I got excited because I love the fish. So then I asked about the pond and realized you can't put a pond there. It wouldn't have enough room for fish if it's going to hold rainwater too. If it collects rainwater and does not flood Fishpot Creek, it would have to be huge. Now I realize there's not going to be enough room for an ECC, a parking lot, a playground, and an outdoor learning center with this fish pond. We can't have that because of how it would flood the homes when it rains. Okay. Picture this. If you have a fish tank that's full of water and full of fish, and then you dump in more water, where does it go? Outside of the water and into the neighborhood. It would flood the creek and create a lot of water problems for the people around it. If the pond is shallow, so it doesn't flood the neighborhood, it can't hold any fish. It would have to be low so it can hold the rainwater. The parking lot is going to be really big, which means there's going to be a lot of runoff from the rain, which can find itself to the fishing pond. It would be carrying all these chemicals from the parking lot to the fishing pond and killing all the fish you just bought. And I really would not want to be spending all this money over and over again to buy new fish every time it rains. My suggestion would be to clean up the pond that is already behind the middle school so that it can be used for fishing. If you don't cover up the field with asphalt and buildings, then you won't have much runoff to worry about.
Thank you, Clayton. We're going to move on to the next speaker now. Next up is Eileen Dempscher.
Good evening. My name is Ellen Dempscher, and I have worked for Parkway Early Childhood for about 2.5 years, first as a teacher's assistant, then as a long-term substitute in a lead teacher's position, and most recently as a day-to-day substitute. I also have about 6 years of experience working in different early childhood programs, and so I know from experience what makes Parkway Early Childhood special. I can speak directly to some of the many reasons for the lengthy wait lists preventing hundreds of families from accessing the high-quality education Parkway Early Childhood has to offer. Simply put, it's the people, the well-educated, highly trained, and exceptionally compassionate early childhood experts that make this program great. Unlike many preschools in the area, Parkway is staffed with lead teachers who have earned college degrees in early childhood education, and many have earned master's degrees on top of that. This makes a huge difference in the quality of education teachers are able to provide. Something else that makes Parkway Early Childhood special is that it has been nationally recognized for its character education program, which helps ensure that in addition to knowing their ABCs and 1, 2, 3s, children reach kindergarten ready to be productive and positive members of their school community going forward. Parkway Early Childhood South, a building the Manchester community voted overwhelmingly in favor of constructing, will allow more young children and their families to experience the benefits of a Parkway Early Childhood experience. The hundreds of families on our wait list deserve this.
Next up is Christy Heffley. Should be followed by Tom Welker and then Chris Lawrence.
Good evening. Upton Sinclair said, "It's hard to understand something if your salary depends on you not understanding it." And so over the past few board meetings, I've heard several Parkway employees say that field that we're going to put the Early Childhood Center on, it doesn't get used. But when I sent an anonymous survey to the elementary school teachers and the Southwest middle teachers, over 70% said that the field is used and it's used regularly. When I asked a few of these, I approached a few of those teachers and I said, will you please speak about this? Because no one that's employed is saying that the field is used. They said, I can't, I work for the district. They were scared that they might get transferred or not have an opportunity for advancement. So they wouldn't speak up. The field is used. I know that you got an email that had a lot of examples of it being used. It's used a lot. And sending our students from the middle school to the south, it's just not feasible. It's not accessible for any of our students that have special needs. And it just takes way too long during a class period to get down there and get back. It's an educational resource that is used. And like this purple versus green, it's just baffling to me. Like, we're not anti-early childhood. We're anti-taking away a resource that's used by 1,000 kids to create 4 or 5 new classrooms. That's what we're trying to help, is find a new place so that everybody can have the resources they need. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Tom Welker.
My name is Tom Welker. I'm a resident in the city of Manchester. Members of the board, Dr. Marty, thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. First and foremost, I'd like to make it clear, from the first time we came in front of you, we were never opposed to Parkway's needs for a new ECC, okay? That has been evidently clear. Secondly, if you look statistically at their own data that they used Enrollment is on the decline by 2030 in that exact area that you guys keep referring to, by over 13%. The new building that will be built, wherever it is built, supposedly is going to have about 12 classrooms. 8 to 9 of them will be consumed by current enrollment in current schools, at least 3 to 4 for new enrollment. So these hundreds of new kids coming in, I don't know where they're going to go. I stood in front of the board the last meeting and suggested we gave you $265 million. That's a third of the way there to rebuilding your entire district. I want you to have your ECC, but with every problem, I like to create a solution. And I've recommended to the board, let's start tearing down these schools and rebuilding them. These schools are aged. Average age is 40 to 50 years old. When is going to be the time? Your current ECC, maybe it's time we tear that down and rebuild that. Newer, bigger, better, and it's more centralized. Doesn't matter if it's in the south area, the north area, the west area. There's a need for one, and we want you to have it. Those are my recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Chris Lawrence. He'll be followed by Ryan Kerr and Jennifer Christensen.
Yeah, Chris Lawrence. I'm a resident of the city of Manchester. I want to reiterate what everyone else says, that I wasn't here at the last meeting, and I saw you all just saying that we're opposed to the ECC, and we're not. I don't know what your PR group's telling you or what, but that has nothing to do with this. It's the location. When I started to go out and canvassing, I guess you could say, because we were the first ones that subdivision that was told, right the day before the election of Manchester annexation, ironically, I thought people would be opposed to it too, and I started going around. It's when they see that map, and they see the map that's just huge. If you would have had that, half that, there would have been no controversy. But it's ridiculous. I mean, you're creating 10, 15 more issues to fix one. I mean, we're not against it at all. Build it, just do some research and figure out where this needs to go. I mean, if you walk over there, if you just look at it, nobody walks over that hill. I mean, I always tell you that I live on that corner, and people that say that field's not used, I had to go get a commercial camera 2 years ago to pan the whole field because I have a German Shepherd, and every time, and during the day, because I work from home, when I would go out there, all the time kids were out there during lunch, right? Whether they weren't there in the morning or night, it was like 12, 1, or 2. So I have no idea. Now, of course, in the last month or two, yeah, I'm sure they've told the teachers not to use the fields. Now they're not being used. They didn't even have field day there this year, first year. So, I mean, it's kind of manipulation there, but so be it.
Thank you. Next up is Ryan Kerr.
Esteemed members of the board, the one thing I haven't heard a single person say tonight is that they don't want an ECC. I put 3 kids, all 3 of our kids, through the ECC. Not the center because we've never had the availability, but through parents as teachers. My mother-in-law gave 40 years to this district. Nobody is against the ECC. What we want is green space for 1,000 students that's not being taken up by a school. You see the acreage? There's plenty of locations. We all know this was denied feasibility because of floodplain, in which it's not in which was admitted at the town hall. Now, the district pool, when it was under consideration, guess where they were going to put the district pool? On the exact same footprint as where the ECC is planned. Anybody see a problem with that? They're just going to eliminate all the green space for the district pool. Nobody took an issue. Is why we're looking at that location, because we've already done the engineering. We've spent the money on the engineering for the district pool plans? I don't know. The nature trails haven't been maintained. And I know we don't have the staff to maintain properties as is, because I've spent 34 hours this year blowing leaves out of Oak Brook Elementary and Sorrento Springs so that my kids wouldn't be breathing in leaf mold on the playgrounds. That's things we shouldn't have to do, but that's the things we have to worry about when we put schools in these locations that are tight. That's all we want, a different location.
Thank you. Next up is Jennifer Christensen, followed by Laura Freeborn.
Good evening. First off, last time we had talked about possibly having a crossing guard because we had middle school children who had been hit while on a bike and one who I had seen almost been hit, along with the countless others that you hear stories about of close calls of those middle school children. We still have not solved that problem for in that early hour to have a crossing guard, but there needs to be someone there to also help those middle school children cross safely. And the other part is I am here on behalf of my friend who has a special needs child. She actually has 2 special needs children. One that requires a specialized chair and another that requires rescue medication. And so I'd like to read part of her speech tonight. This is from Mrs. Woods. If the field is taken away, the answer has been that the middle school students can leverage the high school fields. That takes a non-disabled student 15 minutes round trip to walk up and down a hill. Both of my children require rescue medication, one which is currently being kept with the nurse in the building. There's already a shortage of nurses that I have observed and has been impacted by in this district. So how is my son going to be cared for if a medical emergency would occur off campus at the high school? I'm not talking about a scraped knee, a nurse who is familiar with their needs and ready to handle a true medical emergency. That's a 7.5-minute walk away.
Thank you. Next up is Laura Freeborn.
Hi, good evening. My name is Laura Freeborn. I'm a former Southwest Middle and South High student. Both of my kids walk and/or bike to school. My son is going into 3rd grade at Wren Hollow, and my daughter is going into 6th grade at Southwest Middle. While I'm here wearing green in opposition to the ECC being built in the proposed location between Wren and Southwest Middle, I am still a huge proponent of a new ECC. I agree another ECC would benefit a lot of families and should be considered, but in a different location. In fact, my 2 children did benefit from the ECC. My daughter and son both benefited from the ECC speech programs from the age of 3 to 5 prior to entering into kindergarten. My daughter's speech delay was so severe, she continued speech and went to the specialized speech program at Hannah Woods for kindergarten, receiving almost 800 minutes a week of speech therapy. The services my children were provided with were stellar, and while a South location during that time would have been helpful, we still made the 4 times a week trip to the current ECC and made accommodations to make sure our children received that care. I am forever grateful to the teachers and staff that evaluated, identified, and helped provide services for my children. However, I'm not okay with adding an ECC in the proposed location in order to benefit some children in need at the expense of hundreds of other children. The well-being, safety, education, mental health, and physical activity of all children should be taken into account. There has to be a solution here to make sure all children are getting what they need. Please do not sacrifice my child's well-being for another.
Thank you. Appreciate everyone's comments tonight, and as I mentioned, you will each receive a response from the board in the very near future. So next up, may I have a motion and a second to approve the agenda for the regular meeting of the Board of Education as scheduled for June 12th, 2024?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. The next regular board meeting will take place on Wednesday, August 7th, 2024 at 7 p.m. right here at the Parkway Welcome Center. We now have board and superintendent reports. Matt?
I will be very brief. We have a long meeting tonight, so thanks to everyone who spoke tonight. And then also just congratulations to all the 2024 graduates. Wish them the best on their career adventures. That's all.
Also, yes, I'd also like to thank all the speakers. On that, I do want to say I tell everyone how happy I am that our public speakers are always civil. We may have difference of opinions between groups, but I do appreciate our community being civil on things. You see some things on YouTube, you see some things about other school districts. I don't think we have that. So I just want to say, I appreciate all the civility from all parties. As to Matt, I do want to thank all the graduates. Congratulations. And as summer is now upon us, my daughter took volleyball camp over at Parkway Central. Parkway has a variety of camps over the summer that everybody should be taking a look at. I mean, they are affordable. They really are wonderful programs. I mean, Parkway, even outside of the school year, has amazing programs to look at. And, I hope everyone gets a chance to take a look at them.
Yeah, thanks for reminding me of that, Jeffrey. My
my little ones take advantage of those camps as well, and they're a great collaborative program between the Parkway Rockwood. And yeah, I reflect back on graduation. You know, all the board members get the privilege of attending graduation. The one I went to was Fern Ridge, which is our alternative school where all the children there were graduating face some uphill battles in their life that are very unique to their own situation, and to see them work through that and graduate is inspirational. And the only other thing I'd say is, since we've last met, you know, Dr. Marty has made clear his intention to retire, and I know we'll have a lot of opportunity to consider his impact on the district and talk about his successor, but I'll just start off that commentary by saying, you know, it's really been such a wonderful delight to get to work with Dr. Marty, and has been very impressed with the impact he's had on the district over the many years that he's been affiliated with it. So looking forward to the next steps in that process and the exciting future he has in retirement.
Good evening. I'm also going to keep my comments a little brief this time. I went to a couple of the graduations this year. It was a great experience. It was extra special this year because one of my oldest child was a graduate of Parkway West High School. And I really enjoyed those times because we get an opportunity to see students and families celebrating the achievements of their kids. And that's really all I have to say this time. I hope everyone has a restful and peaceful summer, and I look forward to seeing you guys again in August, if not sooner.
I as well enjoyed graduations. It's always nice to see the culmination of our students coming together and to meet some of the families and see the enthusiasm and the proud nature at which we're celebrating our Parkway students. I'm also pleased that Parkway is doing summer school. My daughter is enrolled in summer school, and it's just a wonderful opportunity for, I appreciate the credit recovery program that Parkway is undergoing so that some of our struggling students have an opportunity over the summer to earn credits that they have fallen behind on, and we all know how that's been going. So they are actually in person, and other students who do credit advancement is doing that virtually. So summer is not letting up for some as we keep going and continuing our education. Over the last several, since the last board meeting, and even prior to that, as I serve on the Special School District's Governing Council, there's been a lot of focus on their budget, and we've had some special meetings to address that. And so our Governing Council is taking a deeper dive and involvement in that process. And we're hoping that things will continue to improve with that process and their findings, and moving forward with developing a strong budget over the next 5 years plus. I also had an opportunity to join the St. Louis School Board Professional Learning Community for their year-end event, which is always a wonderful time to network with other school board members within the St. Louis community, to do some note-taking and networking and just having a lot of fun, and share our experiences on being on a school board throughout the St. Louis metropolitan area. So, thank you.
I'll mention graduations too, because honestly, that's one of the best parts of being on the school board. There's a lot of work, there's a lot of challenging meetings that we're involved in, but handing a kid a diploma is right there, right up there with sitting on the floor reading to a kindergartner. So those were highlights for me. I was fortunate to be at 3 graduations this year. Wanted to share a little bit of sad news. Dr. Leonard Burns, who is superintendent of Parkway from 84 to 88, passed away recently. He happened to be superintendent while I was in high school. So I got to meet him a couple of times, and always liked him, and he was well respected. So we offer our condolences to his family. On a bit of, I guess it's bittersweet news, tonight is Patty Bedborough's last board meeting as our CFO. Patty is retiring after 10 plus years with the district, 10 amazing years. I've only been on the board a portion of those, but When Patty arrived in Parkway, Parkway was nowhere near where it is today. And that's thanks in large part to Patty's actual work, as well as Patty's leadership of those in her department. We've made some incredible strides in those last 10 years, and we're forever grateful for your leadership and your friendship, and we will miss you. But we wish you well in your retirement. And then, well, I think that's all I've got for the moment.
You know, we'll have to judge Patty's report coming up here.
Well, that's true.
It'll be wonderful. It'll be wonderful, I guarantee you. I just want to comment, board members, thank you for your comments about graduations. I do want to say, and you saw it, how much work our principals and schools put into those ceremonies, and they were delightful and well managed, and just a wonderful, wonderful evening. We did have some opportunities to get our school principals and staff together under the guidance of Tiffany and Kevin, Tiffany Colin-Best and Kevin Beckner, to finish some of their CSIP work, which you're going to see tonight or look at the district, but each building has their own responsibility. We did that on June 4th and 5th. Really productive days, and I'm really proud of, I'm always amazed when I talk to other superintendents, when I say we do have these end of the year meetings, they say, who comes to those? Who wants to put in additional times? Ever since I've been in the district, we do a lot of kind of end of the year things, and we get wonderful attendance and from teachers and administrators, so really appreciative. I did have the opportunity to participate in Claymont's 60th anniversary a couple weeks ago, and it was a wonderful event attended by some Claymont alumni from the 60s and 70s. So it was a delightful day. Nathan Birch and his staff did a great job. Also had a chance to be on the field at Busch Stadium with our Parkway Alumni Association for Parkway Alumni Association Day at Busch Stadium recently. Very delightful and again, a great activity. And of course, our Alumni Association does great work in the district. And also participated last week in a Education Plus Summit of Superintendents, bringing together, Chris Gaines, the executive director, brought us together. Really a good learning opportunity as boards for superintendents. And then I just want to comment, when you make comments about the activities, the Parkway and Rockwood Community Education Program really fosters a lot of wonderful activities. So I want to give credit to where credit is due. Mike Seppi and his staff does just a wonderful job. So, and then, you know, it's the end of the year, and I think this person to my right, who does great work for the board and the superintendent, we also, she probably should give a report occasionally at board meetings. She can tell a lot. But I just want to thank Nikki. Yeah, well, yeah. But Nikki Stover deserves so much credit for the work we're doing. We just got relocated. Our school, our building has had some work, and Nikki and so many people really coordinated a lot of that, and we had a great cooperation. But this woman is an amazing, I think the board members agree, and she serves Parkway so well. So thank you, Nikki. At the end of the year, as we wrap up, you're just a wonderful assistant, and we're so great to have you.
Thank you. Next up is something that's not been on our agenda for a long time. It's 10.03 Superintendent Search Update. As Mr. Reedy pointed out, Dr. Marty recently shared some news that he will be retiring at the end of next school year. So obviously, we will have opportunities, official opportunities in the future to thank you for your many years of service. But I will say you have been a very always present leader in our district, and that will be something that will be difficult to replace. Dr. Marty's always been focused on our mission and really putting together, building the Parkway mission to provide an opportunity for the best educational environment for our students and our staff. Teaching and learning is why we are here, and he reminds us of that regularly. We were fortunate that Dr. Marty gave us advance notice. The Board of Education has known for a little while before his announcement became public. So we've had some time to process that information and think about the steps that we're going to take moving forward. We intend to hire a national search firm, which will provide an opportunity to look outside of the Parkway School District outside of the St. Louis area. We hope that we have candidates from right here in the area. We expect that we might, but we also are interested in seeing who else is out there who might be able to bring their talents to Parkway. We have a little bit of a loose timeline. We're firming that up now, but I would say in the next week or so, we will make that formal and share that with the public, what that will be. But I can tell you that over the next couple of months, we will have completed the process of hiring that search firm. And then beginning this fall, we will have that search firm, whoever is selected, will provide opportunities. They'll essentially run the search for us, and they'll provide opportunities for students, teachers, staff, parents, everybody in our community. All of our community Parkway stakeholders will have an opportunity to provide input and feedback in the type of character profile, leadership profile that we would want to see in Parkway's next superintendent. So stay tuned for some of that information. We'll do our best to communicate that as timely as we can. And again, there'll be plenty of opportunities, both in person and electronically, to provide your input as we move forward in this process. So next up is 11.0, our consent agenda. It is very healthy this month, and we've all had an opportunity to review that and have some different questions answered. So at this time, we have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented in the June 12th, 2024 board meeting materials.
So moved.
Second.
Second. All right, is there anything to be pulled to action or closed? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries 6-0. Okay, speaking of Patty Bedborough, for the very last time, I'd like to invite her to present our budget. I wish we had, if we had Kevin here tonight, he could have provided some walk-up music for you. I don't know what it would be, but it would be, choir singing or something.
Thank you very much. And truly, it has been a pleasure over this last decade to serve Parkway. As you mentioned, we have grown, but grown in fund balances and achievements and stuff, but none of that would have been possible without all the people that work for the district and our awesome community that also supports us. And of course, you that support all of our endeavors as well. So as you remember, last month I presented the gist of the budget in the budget presentation. Nikki Otten, Dawn Trocchi, and myself have then produced this beautiful document, almost 160 pages full, including some photos with our students and events that have happened throughout the district over the last year as well. And we have that for your review and approval for consideration for approval tonight. So the only thing that, literally we have tonight is the motion to then approve our total expenditures by each of the funds. So the state of Missouri requires us to have certain pieces in our document, which is a budget message, and then the revenues, and then the expenditures by fund and by function, et cetera. So that and a lot more is included in your budget book. As Mrs. Hopper knows, that some school districts only have a one-page budget message. Ours is, I think, 23.
Well, thank you very much. We have had an opportunity, I looked at mine electronically, I know Debbie looked at hers the good old-fashioned way, but we have had plenty of opportunity to look through this, and what you presented last month was clear and concise, just like it always is. So I don't have any questions. Any other board members have questions?
Could I just comment? I think Patty, when she talks about putting this budget book together and how thorough it is, really demonstrates something that I think is very, very important. Because I've seen, and I've worked in districts where it's just a lot of figures and dollars and cents. But I think what Patty has done as a leader, and I think the SAC group would agree, is that it's not just dollars and cents, because Patty really incorporates, certainly, where this money is going, and it's going to students, it's going to upgrading our facilities, it's going to improving our staff. And it's, so I salute her for always being part of a larger group. Again, I've been in districts and been around CFOs or people that concentrate a lot on the dollars and cents, which is important, believe me, but Patty has led us knowing what the big picture was, whether it was Kevin Beckner or the other members of SAD and what their needs are, and worked hard to arrive at that. So for Patty and that leadership, it's been pretty important. And so when she puts a budget book together, it's not about dollars and cents, it's about our end product, our end result here in terms of students and our community. So I think it's wonderful, and thanks for all the time you devote to that.
Oh, thank you. Well, and it is all of our administrators that develop the budget as well. It's not just our office. Granted, we compile it and we're the ones that mainly work on the revenues, but majority of the expenditures are actually built by each and every one of our administrators, whether it's our principals or our SAP members that have multiple departments as well. And then, of course, nothing would be correct or viable without working with HR to make sure that our human capital numbers are all in sync and budgeted for our raises, for our new personnel, et cetera, as well.
And may I also say, Patty, you and I have spent a lot of time together over the years because of all my questions, and there's never been any doubt of, you've just been open and honest and transparent with any questions that any board member has. And I just, I look forward to continuing to feel that confidence in how you prepared and planned over the years, that will be continued forward, that we continue to have faith in the budget that is being brought forward, and the confidence to know that it's accurate and well-reported and well-structured. And you make everything very easy to understand from a non-financial professional's standpoint, especially in the very complicated world of education finance. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you so much, and for being as open and available as you have been over the years to answer any questions that we've had about our budget.
You are welcome.
Thank you.
It's been my pleasure to serve.
And I have to say, I think Patty's done a wonderful job. Carrie Nunn is here tonight and probably sitting back there going, maybe I need to get out of here with all this pressure on her, but she's going to be wonderful. Patty spent a lot of time in her transition. I really appreciate all, and I know Carrie does, because it's a big job, and Patty's been so giving of her knowledge and support, and she's going to be there in the transition. So again, thanks, Patty, for helping and assisting Carrie.
You are welcome. It's a pleasure. She's going to be amazing.
Okay. Thank you. So may I have a motion and a second that the Board of Education approve the 2024-2025 expenditure budget as presented by the administration in the amount of $347,325,139, with $97,338,466 to be expended from the general fund, $171,549,119 from the special revenue fund, $52,373,820 from the capital projects fund, and $26,063,734 from the debt service fund.
So move.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Hopper?
Yes.
Ms. Mapp Franklin?
Yes.
Mr. Reedy?
Yes.
Mr. Schindler?
Yes.
Mr. Spector?
Yes.
Mr. Todd?
Yes, motion carries 6-0.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next, please welcome Dr. Tiffany Holman-Best, Deputy Superintendent, and Dr. Kevin Beckner, Assistant Superintendent of Teaching and Learning and Accountability. We'll talk about Project Parkway 3.0 for the last official time in this way.
Good evening, President Todd, Vice President Hopper, Dr. Marty, fellow board members, and Ms. Stover. We are, in fact, in front of you for the last time with the strategic plan for Project Parkway 3.0. You should have a copy of the plan with you. at your seats that looks like this. Thank you to our communications department who worked with us to put this beautiful booklet together. We couldn't go one presentation, our last presentation, without putting the coveted timeline slide here for you. Just to remind you that about 18 months ago, we were here just approving a CSIP for our current school year, or our school year that just ended, moving forward to creating our vision for a learner. And it's hard to believe that we are here in June of 2024 with the asking for approval for our strategic plan for 2024 to 2029. So we're going to jump right in. Maybe. There we go. And so we're excited, as you can tell on the back page of the brochure or the booklet that's in front of you, just all of the proud pieces of Parkway that makes us very unique and helps us stand out as a district. We wouldn't be able to do this work without the help of our parents, families, and community members. And so we did highlight that on the back page. And just to remind you how we got here, we started our process 18 months ago, but then we took to the community and interviewed had focus groups over 900 students, community members, in partnership with our steering committee, and many of our board members participating in that through steering and then through your own participation within our community. And that helped us chart the way to get our priorities and our focus areas. As we look forward to continuous improvement, we also know that looking at this over the course of time is critically important, and also looking at the data and feedback that comes from that. And so, as you know, we did send you a 189-page document last week with much of that data and historical references that did, in fact, help us move into our district focus areas and priorities for the plan. Kevin, in a moment, is going to talk about the 3 focus areas for the strategic plan. But what I want to drive home is that at no point did we stray away from our mission. And at no point did we stray away from the vision for a learner that was adopted in the fall, and keeping our kids at the center of all of decision-making that went into making the strategic plan. And so we're incredibly excited about the work that we are doing in service to our young people here in Parkway as we work to help them achieve or attain the vision for a learner, and as we attend to our mission of meeting the needs for all. So I'm going to turn it over to Kevin.
Well, thank you so much. As Tiffany mentioned, and as we've seen many times in our work sessions throughout the many months of this work, our plan is organized around 3 focus areas. Those are our student success in school, our student success in life and beyond school, and how we provide the resources to ensure student success. In each area, we have 3, in each focus area, there are 3 goals. In the area of student success in school, those 3 goals are around achievement and ensuring each of our students is successful academically, around equity, making sure that we are meeting the needs of each and every student in our school, and ensuring the well-being for both our students and our staff members. Each goal area is accompanied by multiple strategies that were identified through the Project Parkway process, along with objectives and things that we'll be measuring along the way to determine our success. In success in life and beyond, those goals are around real-world learning and relevance, around personalizing learning for our students, and around making sure all of our students do achieve that vision for a learner and success-ready student skills. And then in the area of resources, those goals are around facilities and ensuring that our facilities meet the needs of our students and staff, not just now, but in the future. Around staffing and ensuring that all of our operations and certified staff positions are filled with highly qualified personnel who collectively represent our student body. And then that when we talk to a lot of our students, they raised just some satisfaction concerns about things like transportation and food and recess, and we want to respond to that and honor the fact that our students, that's the lives they're living, and we want to respond to that as well. We also have some fantastic people on the back page who are recognized, and that's our Project Parkway Steering Committee, who gave many, many hours over many, many months to contribute to this process. We do have several of them in the back who, in addition to our staff members here, we have Kate Larson, we have Stephen Shane, we have Megan Heather, we have Michael Burtz, all representing the Project Parkway Steering Committee. So thank you all for being here tonight and for your participation throughout the process. There were obviously dozens of others who were involved in that. And as Tiffany mentioned, between the people who participated in focus groups, who came to community meetings, who participated in vision venues, who took part in thought exchanges. We're just very proud of our community engagement around this plan and all the work that's gone up to it up to this point.
At this time, we're happy to answer any questions you may have.
I just want to say, I did look at the list of people to remind myself who participated, but I was impressed that we had such a large number of just general community members that took part in this. It really speaks to the interest of our community in what Parkway is doing, and so it was just impressive to note.
I agree, and it's amazing from the day one and all the poster notes and Post-it notes and posters and markers and signs that we've come down to just this. But I'm like, really? But there's a lot of information in here, so anyway, but thank you so much. You all put in a tremendous amount of time to organize it so well and graphically, and from our communications department to put it together so well like that. I think it represents Parkway quite well, so thank you so much.
I'd just like to say that, they did a great job through this whole process, they being Tiffany and Kevin, and listening to and getting input. So I think, and I saw down the stretch, I think they were in my conference room for, 3-4 days, put it all together, those many pages the board saw, but also finalizing, what is the core of this. So I think the two of you really need a round of applause for your leadership. But I will say Tiffany challenged me this week. She said, there's a lot in here. And she said to me, and only was Tiffany can, she says, we're going to have to discipline ourselves because we now have a pretty good plan. Mm-hmm. And I challenge not only myself, my team, but the board to really, keep this in front of you and make sure that we can really stay focused, that we don't deviate, because there's a lot here. And sometimes we found, even in a SAT meeting the other day, as we were talking, I think somebody boldly said, I think that's in the strategic plan already. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. We have a pretty thorough plan. So, Tiffany, thank you. And I encourage you and Kevin to kind of be our Project Parkway police to a certain extent, but I think we all need to police ourselves. But again, thank you for your leadership.
Any other questions? Okay. So with all that said, may I have a motion and a second that the Board of Education approve the 2024 to 2029 strategic plan as presented in the June 12th, 2024 board meeting materials?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Hopper?
Yes.
Ms. Mapp Franklin?
Yes.
Mr. Reedy?
Yes.
Mr. Schindler?
Yes.
Mr. Spector?
Yes.
Mr. Todd?
Yes, motion carries 6-0. Don't go away. Because you're still up. We'll move on to 12.03, which is the approval of the 24-25 C7.
So in addition to the strategic plan, each year we're required by the state to approve a one-year plan that lays out what our actions will be for the following year. So you have in front of you, and we have on the screen, an overview of some of the pieces for next school year. The initial parts are just making sure that we keep in front of us the key parts of the plan itself. But then there are a few key district actions that we're going to be taking. This does not mean all the actions we'll be taking in the coming year, but just ones that are new, important, or big pieces as based on our strategic plan. So in the success in school category, those include things like we are going to be doing a lot of curriculum work because we heard through our focus groups that, one, we need to work on achievement, but we also need to tighten up our curriculum and make sure that we're really clear on what student outcomes are. So we have identified what we're calling Core Plus classes. There are over 450 courses in Parkway. We cannot possibly work on all 450 simultaneously, so we had to identify what are the ones that we're going to start with and how do we prioritize. So both on that side of the organization and on the social emotional side, we're going to be identifying what are our essential standards, what are the learning intentions, which are more of the things teachers use in their classroom to really make those essential standards come to life, and then our success criteria, how we'll know that students are successful. We will also be, and I know the board has heard much about this over the last year, beginning the launch of our universal screening tool for social emotional needs. As we've been providing much more support for students socially and emotionally, we need to know overall how are students doing, and that's information that we will be able to get with some of our new tools. And Dr. Lucas will be forming an Equity in Action leadership team. We've had the Equity in Action team for years in Parkway, which includes teachers from every building and all throughout the district. And she's recognized the need to hone down to a smaller group to really guide those actions and make sure they're having the impact that we intend for those to have. So those will be just 3 of the key actions on the success in school side. Those success in school pieces will also tie to the success in life area. We don't have any key actions for next year. Those are coming later in the plan, but we do know we have multiple pieces going on in that area as well next year. But Tiffany's going to share about our key district actions in the resource area.
And so later on, you'll hear about facilities, 2050 team beginning their work on outlaying what we will look like by 2050 and what the needs are to address some of what we heard in the focus groups as we were developing the strategic plan. So that work will begin this year. And then also looking at it from a human resources lens, I know Dr. Bogus will be initiating a task force to look at non-certified staff to determine recommendations and next steps as well as we look to resource our buildings and our schools to be most efficient and effective and also honor the staffing needs that we have. And then we're going to do the same to conduct a certified task force as well to look at opportunities to diversify our candidate pools. And so that work will also be coming under our human resources umbrella. With that, do you have any questions for us?
I was just impressed with how comprehensive this is in such a short space here. I mean, there's a lot of work that's going to be done here, and what I'm particularly proud of is it is so student-focused and trying to help with their achievement and their successes in life beyond even school. So I'm really looking forward to seeing the outcomes of this.
Thank you.
Thank you again.
Okay. Thank you both very much for all your work on this one as well. So may I have a motion and a second that the Board of Education approve the school year 24-25 Comprehensive School Improvement Plan as presented in the June 12th, 2024 board meeting materials.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Hopper?
Yes.
Ms. Matt Franklin?
Yes.
Mr. Reedy?
Yes.
Mr. Schindler?
Yes.
Mr. Spector?
Yes.
Mr. Todd?
Yes, motion carries 6-0. Next up, we will shift to reports. And we are pleased to have Amy Gerken-Coates, Coordinator of Talent Development, and Michael Bogus, our Chief Human Resources Officer, to join us tonight to talk about PLCs, talent development, and all sorts of fun things.
Good evening, everyone. I'm going to make sure I know which way I'm turning. All right. Good evening, President Todd, Vice President Hopper, Dr. Marty, and Mrs. Stover. I'd also like to say good evening to board members Matt Franklin, Reedy, Schindler, and Spector. Is that everybody that's here? I always feel bad that nobody says hi to you guys. My name is Amy Gerken-Coates, and I serve as the Coordinator of Talent Development. I'm excited to share with you highlights from the Talent Development Program evaluation this evening. We often think about professional development as the supports for educators as we evolve into the next iteration of education. While it may not seem immediately obvious, this process of constant evolution is much like the evolution of one of Dr. Marty's favorite topics, the high jump. When modern high jumping first began in Germany in the 1700s, it was a PE activity for children where students stood on 2 feet in front of a balance pole and tried to clear it. By the early 1800s, high jumping had developed into a competitive sport and soon spread to Canada and the United States. In 1874, Pierre Loudon introduced a new style of clearing the bar, known as the scissors. This style was rejected by many until he set a new world record. Since that time, the high jump has seen at least 3 additional major iterations that have allowed jumpers to clear previously unimaginable heights.
the most recent having the name of the Fosbury Flap, where the jumper approaches the pole in an entirely new way, jumping backwards and flapping over the new pole. In education, we need to be open to the same new ideas, to approaching the same pole in entirely new ways that will enable us to reach previously unheard of new levels of success. So let's jump in. As with every decision made in Parkway, the driving question must be, does this practice support our mission of capable, curious, caring, and confident learners, and get us closer to our vision of a learner for each student and graduate? While ongoing learning is essential for every position in Parkway, this evening I'll be focused on the learning for our certified staff. For the last year and a half, with the help of Dr. Bogus, the PLC redesign team, and the Professional Learning Action Team, we have been analyzing our current adult learning practices, gathering information from both inside and outside the district on the future of professional learning, and compiling the results into recommendations to bring to you this evening. I've divided the summary into two parts. First, I'd like to share some of our current programming, and then move on to the recommendations I believe will position us to continue to be leaders in adult learning to the benefit of each student and family we serve in Parkway. Parkway's professional learning is a model for others. Parkway attracts educators who comment anecdotally that the learning in their former district is nothing compared to Parkway. They appreciate the support and numerous opportunities available. Thank you to the Board of Education for its continuing support of the professional learning in our district. First, I'd like to highlight our Professional Learning Action Team. Professional development for all districts in the state of Missouri is guided by the Missouri Professional Development Guidelines for Student Success. This act called for the creation of a professional development committee for each district. As provided in this act, the Professional Development Committee, known as PLAT in Parkway, was to stimulate and encourage professional growth. These team members meet with me after school to review processes, present suggestions, ideas, and recommendations pertaining to development within the school district, and assess needs and opportunities for certified staff. The power of this action team is perspective. Because PLAT has an elected member from each building and a representative group of administrators, they provide an invaluable range of perspectives and knowledge that allows the ability to develop broad consensus across our district. In addition to the responsibilities outlined by the state, this group recently reviewed and established the Parkway communication documents around the new 1 in 3 policy. Second is our professional learning policy. The Parkway board policy that is dedicated to professional staff recognizes that educators and administrators play a key role as facilitators of learning. The guiding principles of Parkway professional learning are aligned with the Learning Forward Standards for Professional Learning from 2011. In 2022, Learning Forward released their updated standards with equity at its center. The new standards are grounded in rigorous content for each learner, transformational processes, and conditions for success in professional learning. I would like to recommend that we update our professional learning policy to match the newly updated national standards. Third is our new educator support. The Excellence in Education Act of 1985 also recognizes the need for educators to grow professionally by mandating that each district have a beginning teacher assistant program that shall include, but not be limited to, a plan for professional development for the first 2 years of teaching for any teacher. This plan must include assistance from universities granting degrees and a mentor for each newly certified educator. I'm very proud to report to you that for the last 5 years, Lindenwood University has certified our new educator induction program as meeting the requirements of BTAP, and our educators receive this state-required professional development certificate without having to take additional classes. I will address additional updates to our new educator support in just a few minutes. Finally, I would like to highlight our personalized professional development and PLAT transfer-based system. These processes were both recommendations made at my last program evaluation, and as I stand here today, it is incredible to share with you that nearly half of all Parkway educators have selected to participate in these optional professional learning experiences. In Personalized PD, educators can apply for a stipend of up to $300 by completing learning related to their job assignment and demonstrating how they've used that learning in their classrooms. In a similar process, PLAT transfer-based courses allow educators to also apply to earn up to $300 by taking a PLAT course. These are courses offered by Parkway educators for educators, and demonstrating application to their setting. Both processes recognize that educators are constantly learning, but rewards educators for taking the next step of applying that learning and benefiting students. Moving on now to our program evaluation for this cycle. In September of 2022, I presented 4 main topics and questions to the Board of Education Subcommittee, gathered from the district initial meeting facilitated by Dr. Nathan Tyson. From these topics, I bring the following recommendations. Our first main topic asks the question, is the professional learning we are offering meeting the needs of our educators? The response to the effectiveness of professional learning attended in Parkway was positive. 63% of respondents agreed or strongly agreed that professional learning attended in their buildings meets their learning needs, and 72% supported that their development in their content area meets their learning needs. This is evidence that the focus of our professional learning offered is on appropriate topics and is focused on meeting the needs of educators in the district. Upon reviewing the qualitative data, clear trends emerged regarding the professional learning experiences that respondents believe would best meet their needs in the future. The first one was social emotional supports. Respondents emphasized the importance of building stronger, more inclusive culture within schools, with a focus on understanding and addressing students' social emotional needs. The second is digital age skills. Another prominent theme is the continued development of digital age skills. Educators are keen to explore the benefits of leveraging artificial intelligence in various educational contexts, including the classroom for student learning, educator support, and within library environments. Finally, content-specific support. Especially at the high school level, educators express a strong desire for personalized, relevant, and collaborative PD opportunities. They seek development initiatives that directly address their specific needs and contexts. Educators emphasize the importance of bottom-up development approaches, allowing autonomy in choosing development paths and meaningful collaboration with colleagues to create effective curriculum and teaching strategies. This reflects a need for our PD that is not only tailored to individual educators, but also empowers them to contribute meaningfully to curriculum design and teaching practices. In this area, we make 2 recommendations. The Talent Development Department recommends collaboration between key departments, specifically a partnership between TLA and Student Services, particularly the Social Emotional Behavior Specialists and Equity Team, and the Library Media and Innovation Department, to meet with core curriculum coordinators. This collaborative effort aims to align and support initiatives related to mental health and innovative responses, providing educators with the necessary resources and strategies to thrive in their roles. By leveraging expertise from various departments, this approach seeks to create a comprehensive support system for educators, enhancing their ability to meet diverse student needs and navigate evolving educational landscapes. The second recommendation is to begin exploring how to increase instructional coaching support at the high school level. Each K-8 building has an entire FTE dedicated to instructional coaching, but at the high school level, we only offer a 0.2 support. Main topic number 2, support for our new educators. We asked the question, how can we design support for educators new to Parkway to effectively meet their diverse needs? Parkway has long embraced the notion of educator induction. In its purest form, induction is the systematic process of training and supporting new educators, beginning before the first day of school and continuing for the first 2 to 3 years of teaching. The current model of required induction in Parkway has been in existence for a number of years, but data shows it may be time to evolve in order to meet the needs and learning styles of educators new to the district. According to survey data, there are 4 areas that are most prioritized by educators new to the district: social emotional needs and support, equity, diversity, and inclusion, work-life balance and self-care, and communication and classroom management. The recommendation is to redesign and rebrand supports offered to new educators from new educator induction to new educator exchange. The goal of the new educator exchange will be to create a sense of belonging and expand the educators' professional learning networks, strengthen Tier 1 strategies focused on social emotional learning and equitable instructional practices, and differentiate support for educators who are new to teaching and new to Parkway. The Talent Development Department recommends partnering instructional coaches with the DEI facilitators and the SEB facilitators to design, customize, and cross-collaborate to integrate content, equity,
and the social emotional supports for our newest hires. Our third topic was learning communities. Our driving questions were how are we organizing and integrating professional learning into the classroom, and how are we sustaining and enhancing the effectiveness of our learning communities over time? Beginning in the fall of 2022, Dr. Bogus and I convened the PLC redesign team, consisting of 35 members with representation from PK-12, including building administration, classroom educators, coordinators, instructional coaches, PNEA, and special school district. We began meeting monthly. Our study initially focused on examining the effectiveness of our current PLC, also known as CLT and MSPLC, model in improving student success across the district. As a team, we discovered two major challenges related to the success of collaboration in relation to increasing student achievement. The first is we do not have common data in many areas to review. And the second was that with the frequency with which we meet, typically monthly, does not allow for measurable impact. In highly successful PLC districts, teams of educators typically come together on a weekly basis outside of their individual plan time. As the year progressed, it became obvious that a single model of collaboration no longer meets the needs of all stakeholder groups. I do want to stress there are pockets of educators participating in traditional PLCs that are highly successful, but there are also many other teams that have found the traditional PLC process untenable for their current time allotted. Three key priorities were identified by the team: a desire for simple and flexible collaborative processes, acknowledging that not every level or area benefits equally from the DeFore PLC model, a desire to measure the effectiveness of collaborative time with clear goals and outcomes, and a desire for more frequent job-embedded collaboration time separate from individual planning time. When asked if they supported our designing a process following these three priorities, a whopping 89% of respondents either agreed or strongly agreed with these three keys. This let us know we were on the right track. What evolved is a pathway approach to collaborative time for educators based on the needs of the students they teach. The first is titled the assessment pathway and mirrors the traditional PLC model. The second is an instructional pathway or impact pathway and focuses on improving student success based on improving instructional practices. And the third pathway is an inquiry pathway, similar to action research, where educators come together to study and implement solutions to a persistent or emerging challenge. The preliminary recommendations for PLCs include updating our PNEA agreement, Article 21C. Moving forward, the intersection of more time and results-driven collaboration is essential. 2, addressing the frequency challenges for core areas. In elementary, we recommend allocating an additional 45 minutes weekly for core educators to collaborate outside of individual planning time, utilizing existing resources such as library and orchestra time when possible. This will potentially require additional FTE in some cases. At middle school, there is no adjustment needed as core educators currently have collaborative time built into their school week. At the high school, we recommend organizing the master schedule to allow educators in core classes to meet regularly for collaborative work as their building responsibility. Finally, we'd like to explore and pilot alternative collaboration models. We are looking at partnering with Education First to pilot their PLC 2.0, which is very similar to the instructional pathway, of interested teams of educators to assess the effectiveness and identify innovative approaches to collaboration. Our fourth topic was our combined PD plan and evaluation process. Our driving question was how can we enhance the alignment between our professional learning plan and evaluation measures to effectively support our strategic plan goals. Parkway is somewhat unique in that our district professional development plan is our domains of professional practice evaluation tool. This provides a unique challenge because we don't necessarily have an annual or biannual district initiatives around which professional development can be focused. By unbundling the Parkway Professional Development Learning Plan from the Educator Performance Evaluation, we have the opportunity to address key concerns and align our efforts with what truly matters, improving student outcomes through meaningful professional growth. About half the respondents reported they would benefit from a comprehensive district professional learning plan that focuses on learning for both building specific and content-specific areas. But when administrators were asked the same question, 88% of respondents indicated they agree or strongly agree that they would benefit from a comprehensive district professional learning plan that focuses the learning for both building-specific and content-specific areas. Many districts across the state have adopted a growth model rather than a performance model for evaluating teachers and administrators. In this approach, instead of assessing performance across 36 areas each cycle, feedback is provided in 3 specific areas, with all others defaulting to effective unless there are specific concerns. District leadership selects one descriptor focused on the CSIP. Building leadership selects one descriptor focused on the school improvement plan. And finally, individual educators select one descriptor and focus their professional learning plan on this descriptor. When asked, 72.4% of our respondents supported or strongly supported exploring this option. So our final recommendation is to unbundle the Parkway Professional Development Learning Plan from the educator performance evaluation and explore transitioning to a growth model. This will support our commitment to support educator growth, improving student outcomes, and fostering a culture of continuous improvement. Looking forward, there is much to do, but I believe that with the efforts, supports, and talents in Parkway, we will reach even greater heights. Thank you for your time, and now I'm open to any questions you may have.
I don't know why Dr. Vargas is even here. How lucky are we that we have people like Amy in Parkway that
Thank you, John.
take their jobs so seriously and provide such amazing results. I've had the pleasure of listening to Amy speak to new educators, and I've heard Dr. Vargas talk to prospective educators, and they both just, they just want to grab you and pull you into teaching and take teaching to new levels. It's really inspiring to see the work that you do.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
This report was great. You mentioned Platt, that our teachers are at about a 50% rate of subscribing to that. Or are you seeing a trend? Is that increasing?
Yes, it is. We took a pretty big hit during COVID with there's 2 options. They can do the personalized PD, where they decide what it is they want to teach or learn on their own. And we really saw an increase in that in some of our higher level or in our smaller areas, that when we're offering courses, they didn't have much to. So we've seen a dramatic increase in that, particularly this year. And then the other piece is the Platt courses. And like I said, we had a pretty big dip, but this year our numbers are back up and they're almost at pre-pandemic levels.
You mentioned the stipend. Other than the stipend and personal gain in their profession, are there other ways we can bring?
So we do offer up to 6 of the plus 15 and up to 6 of the plus 30. We call them salary credit courses. So they can use that same process demonstrating transfer into their setting and apply it instead of getting the stipend towards their salary channel change for 6 of those. So it both benefits our students because they're guaranteeing they're applying their learning, and it benefits them because it doesn't cost the graduate level courses to help them get about a third of the way along.
Great.
I think what's exciting here is that what's being addressed here is the future. I mean, and as Amy said, we've had an excellent, but to look at it just like we're looking at Project Parkway in the future of our students and their learning, looking at what teachers need, and I really salute the attention at getting feedback from the teachers as we did on Project Parkway. But what do our teachers need? You know, I've been around long enough to know that PD, professional development or talent development, isn't always popular because sometimes teachers feel like they just have to show up and.
You got me standing here and you're telling me that?
No. I mean, it's as if we have to show up and listen to somebody. But what about our input? What do we need? And I think the change has been, and I think it's been there, and it will continue to be there. Is how do we really get input so we're really helping teaching and learning is, well, learning is changing, right? And so is teaching. And so our teachers need to be continually looking for ways that we can improve their craft. And they're anxious to do so if we get feedback from them, instead of just throwing,
Absolutely.
ideas at them. So I just really think, as you said, Jeff, I think it's wonderful that we have Amy, who's excited about this work and excited about really looking at the future and not just continually throwing the same, process out there. It's wonderful.
Thank you very
And
much.
Mike, thank you for your support.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you both. Okay, next up, we have Math Comprehensive Program Evaluation. So I'd like to welcome Dr. Kevin Beckner back to the podium, along with Stephanie Valley, our middle school STEM coordinator, and Jenny Prophet, our high school STEM coordinator.
And we are missing one of our STEM coordinators tonight, so I am pinch hitting for Jen Abdelazim at the elementary level. We presented our preliminary questions earlier this school year, and these fabulous coordinators have spent the year putting together information to make recommendations, which is what we bring to you tonight. Here were those guiding questions, which they will reiterate to you during each section, elementary, middle, and high. And we'll take them in those three parts because they really ran them as three separate evaluations. At the elementary level, which is what I'll be sharing, the question that you see up there is what needs to be done to build capacity to provide initial intervention to students in the classroom. So when students start to struggle, how do we make sure that we can support them? We gathered some information, and one of the pieces of current reality is we know that we have a large portion of our students who still aren't reaching proficiency. We want to certainly try to get them there. And while we don't have this year's MAP data as of yet, our NWEA growth data is projecting that we will potentially see a little bit of an increase in that proficiency rate this year. So we look forward to seeing that. There are things that have already been taking place at the elementary level in terms of math. This year, they made a shift in their assessments to make them more frequent and targeted. So instead of less frequent and longer, more frequent and narrowing in on specific sets of skills so that teachers can respond more quickly to student need. They have identified essential standards, which we mentioned in the strategic planning conversation as a key piece of work that we'll be doing over the next several years. They've already done that in math for each of the topics. They've aligned those essential standards with their assessments to make sure that when they're actually taking an assessment, it's measuring the things that we're intending to measure. And at the district level, we've created teams that are beginning to work on creating multi-tiered systems of supports, meaning anytime a student is struggling that we have systems that can help them, but also if they're excelling, that we have ways to make sure that they are getting what they need, along with high quality general instruction in every classroom. And Dr. Holman Best is also leading a group right now on creating a new instructional model for Parkway to make sure that when kids are in a classroom, they're getting what they need and that teachers can really respond to student need in the moment. We also gathered teacher input around what needs to be done in math. And so here's just a few of the summary highlights that elementary teachers said about math. They said we need some ways to really help our 4th and 5th graders when they're struggling with fluency, particularly around multiplication, division, things like that. They said that we know we have dedicated math interventionists at the K-3 level, but we don't have those beyond the 3rd grade, and that lack of a dedicated interventionist is really a challenge. And it looks like it got cut off on the slide, but teachers would like to focus, elementary teachers would love to focus on fewer than all the contents they do. Because elementary teachers, unlike secondary teachers, have to plan lessons every day for math and science and social studies and reading and writing. And that's just a lot. So then when we ask them to also do intervention, it's just a challenge with the amount of work that they have on their plate. 2 other things that teachers brought up. There it went. Planning for multiple content areas is difficult. And specifically the kindergarten assessments, teachers reported that they could be better at collecting data on the essential standards. That's my phone, I apologize. Yeah, it's bedtime, guys, it's 9 o'clock. We're all still here together. So the kindergarten assessments aren't doing everything we want them to do. So they developed 4 recommendations. Recommendation 1 and 2 at the elementary level. The first one is the recommendations that we identify a tool that teachers can use to help students really reinforce their multiplication and division facts, as mentioned, 4th and 5th grade, that's a particular concern. The italicized up there is knowing that this recommendation was coming, we have identified federal funds and a tool that we are already in the process of purchasing to address that recommendation. The second recommendation is that we revise those kindergarten assessments, and we have dedicated some of our development funds for this summer, bringing teachers together in order to respond to that work and revise those assessments so that they are assessing the standards really well. The third recommendation, we need to make sure, along with essential standards, that we have learning intentions. What is it that we actually expect to see students doing? And what would it look like when they're successful for each topic aligned to those essential standards? Essentially clarifying the curriculum work to make sure that everything we're doing is right in line with what we want to see students achieving. And finally, they would like to explore increasing intervention options by identifying ways to expand the math support specialist program to grades 4 and 5 and support teachers when they're providing tier 2 or targeted intervention within their classroom. So those are the 4 elementary recommendations. We'll have the middle school and high school folks go through theirs, then we'd be happy to take any questions that you might have. So I'll turn it over to Stephanie Volley to present the middle school report.
Good evening. So middle school, we had a much larger question that we were trying to answer just because we have been in our current resource and curriculum now for 3 years. And so it was really, we needed to try and decide like what's happening, what's going on, just really do that big check over everything. So we really were looking at what needs exist within instruction, intervention, and programming in middle school math to ensure mastery for all students. So within that, we identified 3 key areas. So we really wanted to take a look at the curriculum because we had updated it. We wanted to really find out, so how clear are students around those priority standards? We also really wanted to focus on instruction, so really thinking about how well are our instructional practices meeting the priority standards, and then thinking about progress monitoring and intervention, which connects beautifully to elementary. When students are not at grade level, what process do we have in place to accelerate their learning? So again, thinking about what are we doing to help support our students who are not on grade level. So a little bit about the timeline. So what's happened over this year, from September to December, we were working on gathering research, determining and building tools with the middle school math teachers. We built a tool to gather data on instructional practices. You'll see that in just a minute. From January to April, we were really focused on developing findings. We had focus groups, we had data collection, and we ran multiple surveys to parents, students, focus groups for administrators and teachers, and then just walks into the classrooms. In May, completed the final draft of the report, and tonight I'm presenting those recommendations to you. So with regards to curriculum, so if we think back 3 key areas, right? Curriculum was the first area. Within curriculum, we sent out a student survey, and around that survey, we were really looking for how clear are our students around our priority standards. So with a shift with the new curriculum, with a shift with the new resource, we would really want to see our students knowing and understanding and being clear. So we were asking, one of the questions we asked our students was, when students are asked the question, in math class, we use our I can statements or success criteria to help us know what we will be learning. You can see here that 46.4% of our students either strongly agree or agree, and neutral, meaning they didn't have an opinion one way or the other, 34.9%. And disagree or strongly disagree, we're 18.7. So in looking at this, we still have some work to move us forward, but we're definitely moving in the right direction with our students being clear on what they're supposed to be learning. In addition, we asked them the question that in their math class, the I can statements are clear and easy for me to understand. And you can see here, very similar results from that. We will be, as part of the Core Plus work with our
with our goals with our CSEP, we will be focusing even more on our essential standards, learning intention, success criteria to really hopefully move this even further for our students. So the second key area we took a look at was instruction within the classroom. And we were really looking at our instructional practices in the classroom and how those meet our standards. So this is the tool I was sharing with you that we created. You have a link to this in the actual program evaluation I sent in. But this was a document that was created with teachers and by teachers. It was really that idea of what are we supposed to see when we walk in a math class? You know, there are thoughts, everybody has thoughts and experiences, but we really envisioned if we were to walk into a math class, what would we want to see? And it really boiled down to so many of those really basic instructional practices, like making sure that our teachers are collecting data, making sure that they're giving feedback to students, those types of things. So with this being designed by teachers, then the ultimate intention of it was for us to go into classrooms and actually capture some data about how many times we're seeing these things happen. We'll talk about that in a minute. So what we did is actually look at some of our instructional practices and specifically looking at visual evidence of our I can statements. So again, being very clear that teachers and students know that success criteria. You'll hear me using that intertwined interchangeably. Thank you. And so with that, that's really what we're talking about, is this is what students should be able to do and understand. So we took a look at the visual evidence of them, teachers using those statements when they're communicating with students. So really setting goals and saying, like, this is what we need to be working on, or what would you like to be working on. Also, teachers providing feedback with clear goals, so both verbal and or written. So oftentimes we see in classrooms, teachers are verbally sharing, but we also know that there needs to be some power in providing that written feedback so students don't have to remember the feedback. Instead, they can actually go back to it, see it, build from it, and set clear goals from it. And then as part of our work in math, we've been really working on notebooks, whether that be print or digital or blended. This is where students are really capturing their I can or their success criteria statements and able to actually track their own progress for how they're doing within each one of these statements. So you might see, based on this particular tool, I might have walked into a teacher's classroom and I could see multiple of these. So I could have walked in and I could have seen, teachers using I can statements to communicate, but I also could have seen them providing feedback with those I can statements. So the data that you see here is of these 4 areas, which we know are key things that our teachers need to be doing in their class as far as instructional practices. Where did we see them? And how often? So we're seeing that visual evidence, 18.4% of the time, using the I can statements to communicate, 27.6%. Teachers providing feedback, 30.7%, and then using those notebooks, 23.3%. So that might cause you to think, well, wait a minute, but our students said that they were really clear and they understood what they were learning. Yet, we might need to take a little bit closer look at our instructional practices that we're utilizing in the classroom to take a closer look at those. So our third area that we focused on was progress monitoring and intervention. So that idea of when students are not at grade level, what process do we have in place to accelerate their learning or to help them grow? So these, we had teacher focus groups and administrator focus groups that we utilized. And so of this is just a summary of what some of the teachers shared first. So they really emphasize the need for a comprehensive intervention program, so really looking at it as a whole. Then they also, teachers were advocating for a program or a tool to provide that targeted support for students. Really thinking about, there's not one particular tool or a resource that we could actually go to and say, this is what we would use for our students who are struggling the most, meaning more than 2 grade levels below. In addition, the teachers proposed that providing push-in support would be beneficial. This would actually help really get our students to our curriculum goals and enhancing those, and actually making sure that there's a connected piece between receiving that intervention support and making sure that our students are meeting those essential standards. In addition, teachers called for a proactive decision-making, really grounded in the needs of students, but also recognizing teacher input. It was really, really awesome to hear some of our teachers share. You can hear their passion and their love for their students needing math support just in the statements that they were making. It was fabulous. And they still, the interesting thing is I've worked with this group now for pretty much almost 10 years. And we've developed just this great relationship with, I've developed that with the middle school math teachers. And the interesting thing was I could almost hear which teacher it was just by what they were sharing, because they share it with me all the time. They were so excited to be able to give some of this feedback on what is it that they would really like to help support their students. They also emphasized that the importance of interventions that would be meaningful and impactful would be so important for them, and including those who are struggling in math. So that was a little bit of what our teachers shared. In addition, we did an administrator focus group. So within this group, this was a randomly selected group of administrators that shared, again, back to that idea or question, what do we do when our students are not at grade level? So our administrators were sharing that they felt that there was not a process for when students are not at grade level. We've known that in middle school for a while. It was great to hear from both teachers and administrators that yes, that is, it's not an assumption we're making, but instead it's what we're actually seeing. So administrators had a desire to see follow through on the creation of our multi-tier system of support where previous efforts might have fallen short. So they're really excited about the idea of having this multi-tier system of support so that when students are not at grade level, we actually have some systems in place to help support our students. In addition, they'd really like a balance between social emotional support and curriculum instruction support. So it's really kind of this back and forth between, we know that they need social and emotional support, but we also know that they need actual curriculum and content support in math. So they just wanted to have a nice balance between the two. And currently, even though we have not fully identified our multi-tier system of support, administrators have already been attempting to try and do some of this within their building, trying to be creative with their staffing and their resources, but still it's a struggle because of the lack of staffing and or resources. They've tried to get really creative. So based on all of this, some of the recommendations that then came out, these came into two key areas. So the first area of recommendations was really focused on instructional practices. So within this, there were two recommendations. Again, looking at those data collection form that I shared with you and what might be some things that we would want to work on with our instructional practices. So increase professional development for teachers in how to provide written and verbal feedback with clear goals connected to the standards. Really taking the time to develop teachers on what does this look like and how would we do this within our classroom. Another one, recommendation 2, was increase professional development for teachers in how to use and communicate the ICANN, or our success criteria statements with students. And this work is we're already starting to create some choice courses for teachers within our PD plan next year to really help move forward our success criteria and making sure it's in the hands of our students and teachers are able to support them. The other area that came out of the recommendations was, to nobody's surprise, improve Parkway's approach to meeting math needs for students currently below grade level. So there were quite a few recommendations that came out of this. This is based on both the focus groups parent survey. We also included a parent survey in there. And so some of the first recommendation that came out is increase in resources to support efforts to intervene in math to increase student learning, while also recognizing that additional personnel might be necessary to address these. Things like math specialists, math teaching assistants, professional development, and so forth. The next recommendation, recommendation 4, was that we research, purchase, and implement Tier 3 intervention resources. This has been an area in middle school that we have not had a research-based Tier 3 intervention. And so really researching that and trying to find what is something that we could use. That would be, though, when we're talking about those, we would need assistance in how to implement those. Because much like all of our teachers, they are doing a lot within the classroom, and Tier 3 is really some significant one-on-one work with students. Recommendation 5 is smaller class sizes or off-team teaching arrangements to support struggling students. So this is a little bit of where some of our buildings have gotten creative. They've pulled one of their teachers off team, and that teacher tries to help and support as much as possible within those core classrooms. So recommendation 6 was just overall, we just see that there's a need for more structured and coordinated approach to support students who are not at grade level overall within middle school. And recommendation 7 was after-school tutoring options or opportunities for students to take courses for enrichment. So that's what they walked away with. So now I'm going to turn it over to Jenny Profit for high school.
At the high school level, which was much shorter, because I know it's getting late and Kevin's bedtime alarm went off. As you heard in elementary and middle both addressed, it's really important to have a strong curriculum for all of these things to happen. And it had been several years since high school had done a really strong curriculum audit. And so the question at the high school level was, how might the high school curriculum be written to best align with the Missouri Learning Standards and the high school priority standards? So it set out at the beginning of the year with a plan to look at EOC scores and score reports, as well as at high school we adopted NWEA in Algebra 1, and so wanted to look at what that was going to give us as data availability. Look at the teachers, what the Missouri Learning Standards are, as well as in the last few years they've identified priority standards within the math curriculum. And then math tends to be a pretty, you guys might say rigid and linear type curriculum, right? And so along with the Success Ready Network, we wanted to start looking at opportunities to make a math curriculum more flexible and more relevant for students. So that was going to be in there, and then apply that learning to a new curriculum document setup that we were hoping for. So along with the 6 other curriculum coordinators that touch high school, we started working on what could possibly be a new template. And then I actually started working with that with teachers at August Professional Development. And so what these new curriculum documents contained were curriculum domains, which is how the state as well as NWA kind of sections off areas in mathematics. We looked at our knowledge and skills and how we could improve and use those standards in order to get that information out to kids. And then again, looking forward to how we can make the curriculum more flexible and relevant for students, we started playing around with a model that uses modular credit pieces, and so to give kids a little bit more flexibility. Then I worked with some teachers on that,
And then it became pretty clear that we were going to have a new strategic plan coming around. And in that new strategic plan, it has become very clear that there are 2 areas in there, achievement and relevance, that are now going to rely on having a really good curriculum document in place. And so we halted the work on that so that we could start to develop a different curriculum document. What was nice about what was going on with the curriculum documents, though, is that a lot of the work that we put in at the high school level and even with my teachers is going to be very relevant to the new curriculum documents. And so you've heard a lot tonight about identifying essential standards. You heard Stephanie talk a lot about what are the success criteria and the learning intentions. And there's going to be a lot of applicability with what we were doing to these new documents. And so Kevin also mentioned during his strategic plan update that we'll start to work on the core and the core plus next school year. So just wanted to let you know that in math, that will mean our Algebra 1 class. We have 3 different levels of geometry, 3 different levels of Algebra 2. Then, because I had already started work on our Algebra 3 class, we'll be working on that, and then our Building Math Competency 4 class to kind of go along with that intervention model. That's the name of our pre-algebra type curriculum that we have in high school. So those will be the classes that we will be putting a lot of work into next year. So with that, we will take questions.
Well, first off, thank you for such a detailed report. More rock stars in Parkway. We're sorry Jennifer couldn't be here tonight, but you all gave us a lot to think about. I'm interested more in that, the modular credit piece that you were talking about. So it'll be interesting to see how that kind of evolves.
Yes, and North High at the Wayfinder Academy, which will be opening next year, will be one of the first places where we get to see that in action.
Cool.
Oh, and Fern. Yes, Fern has really been working with that for a couple of years also, yeah.
You know, there's been a lot of attention, I think, post-pandemic, at the state level and federal level about math achievement. Took a dive even more so than reading and ELA. So I think you're addressing some really important topics. I think it's fair to say that, Parkway has not been immune from that, but our achievement is rebounding a little bit. So I don't really have a question as much as I salute you for, really, again, looking into the future and really beginning to examine a new way to look at math, because we've, been doing math a lot of similar ways, but a real attention to, how do we intervene and how do we effectively get students really understanding the importance of math, and parents and teachers really looking at their craft, so.
One question that I do have, is there ever opportunities to match students with teachers in the math? Like if a student is struggling, do you switch them to a different teacher because perhaps their particular way of teaching or being able to explain math to a student works better between?
If that does
student
happen,
teachers?
it happens at the building level. Generally, we match them to the course rather than the teacher. But oftentimes those counselors know the students really well, and when they're building their schedule, they might say, hey, I really think this teacher is going to be the one who matches best. That's going to happen really at the individual student and counselor level, not systemically.
Okay, all right, thank you.
One thing and I think I've said this in previous meetings, so I've got 2 elementary school daughters. I have tried to teach them or help them learn math, and I can't understand how to teach them it because it's not the same as when I went through. If there's something out there that can help parents as well, help with that intervention at home. Because I have gone on YouTube many times trying to figure out how to teach my 4th grade daughter the right way that the school's teaching her. And just something to think about. There's as a parent who's trying to help, it's not always the best.
Yeah, thank you for that suggestion.
Yeah, I will add to that. As far as parents, I know when we were kids, we often had books that actually gave you the guidance of how to get to the answers, and we don't generally have that kind of information that comes home from the schools anymore. So it's a lot of Khan Academy and things like that we use. But that would be something helpful, I think, for at least, at the beginning of a different curriculum or module or something like that. But my question, I had another question and comment. You had mentioned something regarding math facts and the fluent and understanding those, and I just wanted to add to that, and I think you actually mentioned it, it is the building block of all levels of math that come after that. And I honestly believe that during the pandemic, those kids that did not get a good understanding of that, my child in particular, and I'm one who's like, we got to know those. And it was not, I don't feel it was as a priority at that time, which I understand. But now in middle school, we're seeing those building blocks that he has missed. And I think when we're talking about interventions, I know that it's something that you all would like. I also would like to see that as well for interventions at not just K through 3, but further along. And then I had another question. This is a question, not a comment. Can you give me an example of what an ICANN statement is?
Certainly, yeah. So our state standards are really big. Like, they say, solve a problem, using da-da-da-da-da. So what we've done, the teachers have done, is they've actually broken that standard down to basically what are the skills individually the student would need to have. So if we think about ratios and proportions in 6th grade, right? One of them is, I can write a ratio, right? I understand unit rate. So we break them down into those smaller skills that a student would have to be able to do to actually meet the bigger standard. So it's really putting it into student-friendly understanding of what is it they have to be able to do. So that's a great question. No, I'm glad you asked that. Yeah, I'm glad you asked it.
And one other question. You use the term struggling. I can't remember if it was middle school or high school now. But you use the term struggling and then also not at grade level. Are those considered interchangeable, or does struggling mean less than, more than not at grade level?
Yeah, speaking with middle school, I would say, first of all, if we're not struggling in math, then math isn't challenging us. So generally, struggling, it should always happen in math. What we're talking about really is where the struggling meets a high level of frustration, that's when those things happen. And what we typically see is that students who are 2 or more grade levels below, that's where we start to see that it becomes a high level of frustration from their level of struggling.
So they should be used interchangeably in this report?
In this one, yes. Yes, but I would also say that, philosophically, anything in math should look like this. Like, our students should know a lot, and then there's times where they don't know anything about that particular topic, because that's actually what the challenge becomes. Because if they're always here, then we're not pushing them and enriching them. But if they're always here, then we also can't help them to actually get to that point where they're with their grade level peers, or they're even reaching those standards that are the building blocks of what they need to be able to go on to that next level.
That reminds me of a question that I recently asked about incoming students that are coming from another district and they're transferring into Parkway. Are there any baseline assessments done for students, especially in middle school and high school right now, because they're recuperating from COVID also years? Are there any baseline assessments done to transferring students on math?
So at middle
what
school,
their grade level is?
Yeah, so at middle school, I typically am one of the go-to people for students, not for all students, but let's just say for our students where English is not their first language. A lot of times they'll come to me, and then I'll meet with parents, Because what we're finding, it's actually really fascinating, is that some of our students who may not have taken math in the US, they've taken it in other countries, what we're finding is the structure for how math is taught in other countries is very different than the US. And so it requires conversations with the parents and the students to say, okay, wait a minute, have you learned this topic or this topic? And then we can actually work to place a student based on what they actually know and understand already, and then potentially fill some gaps. We did that we were working on that with a student this year, where we were just having that student also work through these other units on their own so that they didn't lose all that. But there was no reason why they would need to complete the whole course. So in addition, though, I would say that many of our families, if they come in, I'm very familiar with most of our area school districts as far as what how their courses relate to our courses. So a lot of times I can look at a report or talk with a family and have a pretty good idea. I would say no matter what, there is almost always a conversation with the family and with the student to really understand. Sometimes, as a result, we will give an assessment on their learning. And typically what we'll do is, in talking with the family, they think that they've already had, let's just say, unit rate. We'll give them what would have been the end of unit assessment for that particular unit, and then we can have a better idea of what they have or don't have. That was a long-winded answer to your
No, that's
question.
great. No, I appreciate it. In high school, it would,
Yeah, it's basically the same thing in high school. What we see a lot is students who come in that have not taken math in this country, and it's very different. And so they might have had a little algebra, a little geometry, a little algebra 2, and so it's trying to figure out, or I had one this year who knew how to solve everything through algebra 2, but had very little graphing experience, and that's like our first semester versus our second semester. And so it really can be just puzzles, trying to work kids like, let's try them on this set of problems. Let's try them on this set of problems. Let's see if they know this in order to figure out where they're gonna go. So we have some basic skills tests that are like at a pre-algebra level to see if because we do have some students who come in that really aren't even ready for algebra at that point, but I would say it's more of puzzles that we're trying to put together with math teachers at the school, with counselors, with families to try to get them in the best location.
And Jenny and I work a ton together because we often see it at that transition point of like 7th, 8th, 9th grade. We also see it in that 5th to 6th, but it's probably more prevalent between us. So we work together and we're constantly, I'm like, okay, this is what I see. What do you see? And use each other a lot to help solve the puzzle and create really like, what are some out of the box thinking that we can do to help support the student and not cause them to have to repeat something that they've already had.
The general answer to your question, and they give you a bunch of very specifics, is very specific answers in student situations. We rely largely at the secondary level on the information we're getting from the previous school, because we have generally a pretty good record of, hey, what's been happening with this student's learning? When there's a situation like they're describing, hey, it looks like the student's in the wrong place, or hey, it looks like the student, or maybe even the parents saying, I want them to go to a different course, that's when we would jump into the assessment part of it. Otherwise, much like our answer on the previous question about the counselors, it is our counselors who are doing that work, like talking with the families every day about, here they're coming in, I have these records, here's what it's looking like. They're often calling the previous school and trying to get those records so that we can place them appropriately. So like that's our primary tool when we have a new student, is actually to gather all their educational records from wherever they've been before and use that information, and then go to the things they were describing when we have a situation where, okay, now we need some testing for this student.
thank you very much.
Thank you all very much. Appreciate your passion for math and all things STEM. All right, our final report tonight will be Facilities 2050. So I'd like to invite Dr. Keith Marty and Jason Rooks, our Chief Information Officer, soon to be Executive Director of Operations in just a couple of weeks, and Lisa Tomich, our Chief Communications Officer.
Well, what an interesting night, right? We've been all over the place in so many topics, and we're going to finish talking about facilities. But I would like to thank the board for your approval of Project Parkway 3.0 and CSIP, because that lays the groundwork for the work ahead. You know, as was mentioned in our community feedback session and our feedback as we prepared Project Parkway, we heard a lot about facilities. And we are realizing that our facilities are approaching 60 years old, on average in Parkway. We heard the term revitalization often, and I think even Tiffany and Kevin used that as they talked about the strategic initiative resources in the plan. Addressing facility needs is not new in Parkway. When I arrived in the district in 2011, I immediately heard concerns about our facilities. They were getting old. There need to be some new science classrooms at the secondary middle level. Safety and security needs, restrooms were ugly and needed replacement or updates. Athletic facilities, and more and more. In 2012, we proceeded on a path to address facilities, and we called it Facilities 2030. I'm pleased to say that the successful bond campaigns of 2014, 2018, and 2022 have addressed many of these issues, but not all. And we're also in a new era. It's been a lot of years since 2012. So as we approach 2030, it is time to once again make our facilities and their support of learning, student well-being, and staff well-being, and the expectations of our community a high priority. As you've seen, it's found its way to our strategic plan, Project Parkway, and we have decided to embark on a new plan, and we're going to call it Facilities 2050. We can't immediately address the needs, and we're hoping to really guide us in the work that we have. As was mentioned by one of our speakers tonight, we have a lot of facilities, and we have a lot of work ahead. So it's my pleasure to hand off this work to Jason, who is going to assume the new Executive Director of Operations role. And I have to just say, he is excited about this role, as only Jason can be excited about a number of things, because I think it gives him a great opportunity, because he's been in the district a long time, he knows our facilities, and certainly has shown in his work in technology that he understands how to bring people together and how to proceed to improve our processes and the work that we need to do ahead. So, Jason, please step up and take it off.
Yeah, Dr. Marty knows how long-winded I get when I get excited about something, so I promise to keep tonight short. As I was preparing for tonight, I had to reflect back on a slide that I stole from Paul Tandy, where he had presented this at a Project Parkway meeting before, as preparation for a bond issue, where our average age of our buildings was 49 years, and we had only two buildings that were less than 30 years ago. Well, believe it or not, that was 7 years ago. So as Dr. Marty said, right now our buildings are averaging close to that 57, almost coming up to 60-year mark. So, you know, time stands still for no one, and it doesn't stand still for our facilities. So as we go into Facilities 2050, we've got a number of challenges to tackle. Changing enrollment, where are things shifting? Limited space to expand. We often talk about how we are pretty much landlocked these days. Our scoring matrix for facilities improvement projects is somewhat outdated and probably needs to be updated to take in some of these other considerations. We also are in a new world where we need to support new safety and security concerns. And as always, even though Patty's leaving, with Carrie on board, we're going to need to keep in mind fiscal and environmental considerations. And then pulling directly from our mission, as we look at Facilities 2050, we need to make sure we're supporting the ever-changing world for our students as well as for our teachers. So we've drafted up 3 high-level goals, and I'm going to emphasize the draft on this. So our goals for Facilities 2050: build a sustainable process for immediate and long-term revitalization of district facilities. As I was helping facilitate one of the sessions at the Project Parkway community meeting, we kind of had this like long-term facilities conversation, and what I kept hearing from community members was, we can't wait long-term. We need to be doing things right now. So we do need to work on a process that is sustainable, that allows us to have some immediate revitalization, as well as that long-term plan. We need to strengthen the trust Parkway community has in our facilities' ability to support the health and wellness of students and staff. And this one I kind of pulled some of the wording I heard from a principal that was saying, emphasizing the frustration was that he couldn't trust that the air conditioning would be working on a hot day, or that when it rained, there wouldn't be water coming in from the roof. We need to rebuild that trust and make sure that our students, our staff, and our community know that our facilities can support our students' wellness and health. And then lastly, we need to ensure Parkway facilities are prepared to support the future and ever-changing needs of our students and staff. And this is really bringing in the curriculum piece. We can't just slap up 4 walls, some windows, and a door, throw up a smart board, some wireless, and call it a day. We really need to be looking ahead to what are those curricular needs that we see coming down the pipe, working with Kevin and his team, and making sure that we are taking that into consideration as we plan for Facilities 2050. That's a big umbrella we just cast there, right? We're going to be talking about a lot of different things, but one of the topics that has already been discussed tonight will be part of this Facilities 2050 discussion, and that's going to be our ECC building and our ECC plans. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Elisa.
So we just wanted to make sure that the community, our parents, and our staff know that we're committed to addressing early childhood, that early childhood will be a component of this 2050 facilities undertaking that Jason's taking on. And so as things have changed, one thing that we have seen remain a constant is the demand for high-quality early childhood education in Parkway. We've seen residents in the South continue to expect it, and our satellite locations continue to feel the strain of space and not having adequate facilities for this age group. So in April, we presented to you our update on where we were with the new Early Childhood Center. And this board, you all had a number of questions, and that we are in the process of researching and getting information to bring back to you. For the time being, the project is on pause as we examine and reevaluate the scope, the location, issues related to traffic. Parkway's site permit is still in the hands of the City of Manchester. They're still reviewing it. And the city is also doing its own traffic study. So we did our own traffic impact study. They're going to be doing one independent of ours that will be broader in scope than ours was. So, we'll see what recommendations the city has, but it's going to take some time. So we're thinking, we had a meeting about 2 weeks ago, Dr. Marty, Jason, and I with the City of Manchester, and they think that it may not be till November until we get that study back, that information back. So we will be able to give you a report then, an update in terms of what we know. And we can, hopefully that will help provide direction on how to move forward. But early childhood will be a component of the 2050 facilities.
So with that, we look at next steps. Immediately begin background and design work. Part of that will be identifying opportunities for community input. So, and I use the word community broadly to encompass students, staff, community members, Parkway residents, those folks. We need to finalize the goals and objectives. As I said, our goals that we've written so far are draft goals, and we do need to get some additional input, as well as get more granular on what our objectives are. We need to ensure alignment with new and ongoing district initiatives. It's important to me that Facilities 2050 isn't just we're doing another thing. It needs to align with Project Parkway 3.0. It needs to align with our strategic plan. It needs to align with the program evaluations that our facilities and other departments are going to be doing in this year, next year, and the year after that as we continue the Facilities 2050 work. And then we need to identify and schedule milestones for success to make sure that we are holding ourselves accountable and continuing to make forward movement and momentum in our Facilities 2050 plan. And then lastly, and I view this as probably most importantly, provide ongoing updates to the board and the community of the work we're doing in Facilities 2050, as well as opportunities to contribute and provide input. And with that, I'll say see you again in fall of '24. And thank you. Does anyone want to talk about cybersecurity? No. We'll open it up to questions.
Well, Dr. Marty was right. You are excited about it. And I think that makes us excited about it. It's, I went to, my father went to school at Mason Ridge. I went to school at Mason Ridge, and I was back there for their 75th a year or so ago. and not much has changed.
Let's say some graffiti that you had left behind was probably still
No,
there.
that's been painted over. But, you know, I know we've got several really old buildings.
Yeah.
That obviously, the older the facilities and the more constrained the facilities, we really need to take a look at those sooner than later. And so I'm excited that you're so passionate about this already, and we're just in the infancy of this work. So I look forward to seeing how you'll engage us, how you'll engage the community, and how we can, you know, really make a difference these next 25 years. I find it interesting, I mentioned this to Dr. Marty recently, that St. Louis County Parks has developed their own Facilities 2050 plan as well in their approach to look at how the parks need to evolve and things over the next 25 years. So we're obviously in good company and we're on the right track, I think.
And that'll be part of that background and study work that we're going to be doing this summer, is looking at who's kind of already tread some of this and how can we learn from them as well.
Jason, you want to just maybe give some initial thoughts about who's going to be involved in this? I know from a standpoint over the summer and the fall, I mean, not just kind of generally, because we do want to involve other people. You talk generally about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and that's going to be part of the planning we're going to be doing this summer, is really kind of building what is that structure that I'm going to get the title right at some point, Facilities 2050 is going to look like. And we do want, I kind of hit on this a little bit, but where are those opportunities that we can have identified community members participate? And where are those opportunities that we can have the kind of open to the public participation? And making sure we're really intentional in our engagement with students, staff members, as well as community members, and having that diverse perspective into the planning for our future, the future of our facilities.
I have to say, I think you picked the perfect report to end the evening, because I didn't think I'd get charged up about anything at 10 o'clock at night, but I'm charged up now. I'm like, this is a great way to end
coffee so I
tonight,
could bring it.
because I'm really looking forward to all of this, because it's time. I mean, we've all had discussions about, you know, efficiencies of operations and consolidating operation and all that kind of stuff, you know, so I'm just thrilled that this is gonna start moving forward, really. So, thank you, and very excited to have you at the helm of managing all that.
Thank you.
All right, thank you all very much. Okay, with all that said, may I have a motion and a second to adjourn the regular meeting?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Thank you all very much for attending.